Welcoming guys to the first of potentially many full movies of entire seasons of the WoW Token Challenge. This one in particular is going to be for Durotar. This is an entire full movie of the 10 episodes that we had in Season 1 of the WoW Token Challenge. This is for the people that have maybe not watched the full thing yet. Also, if you're brand new and you've never seen it before, this is a full movie instead of watching each individual episode by itself. So I've cut out some of the, intros and giveaway segments and all that jazz in between the episodes. And then you can just enjoy one full entire movie of the entire season. I hope that kind of makes sense to you guys. And I'm going to treat this as any other kind of video around this challenge. We are going to be doing a 2 months of game time giveaway. And as per usual, all you have to do is like the video and then type a comment down below about what you think about this type of content. I've seen it from so many other creators across not only World of Warcraft, but plenty of other games. So let me know what you guys think about this type of content. If you would like to have a full movie for the Barrens as well, you can see them flying around here currently at the time of recording. When we finish up the Barrens, let me know if you want to see something like this as well for that. But I hope you guys enjoy, and get out your snacks, get out your drinks, because it's gonna be a long one. And in the struggle bus of trying to find content to do when we're waiting on midnight to roll around and player housing to roll around, I noticed a little bit of a series here. Now, this name, Pefalerics, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, he has started a new show that he calls Goldbound. I don't want to call it the same thing, but this is heavily inspired by that. And in this series, he says, I can't leave Elwyn until I earn a WoW token. Now, we're doing the exact same thing, but instead of Elwyn, we're doing Durotar. And you can obviously see we're in a lovely orc here called Sand Peon. Again, huge shout out because it's a really fun idea and I haven't really done any kind of gold challenge like this in years. So I'm very excited to get started on this. And we're actually going to be using the same exact rules that he has used for his challenge because I think they're very fun. If we make any slight adjustments throughout the challenge, then that it is what it is. But the gist of it goes as follows. We have to make enough for a WoW token, and if you guys have watched the series over on Pefalerics' channel, you will know that that is on NA, because on European servers at the time of recording this video, this is 360k. So the amount of gold that we actually have to make is considerably higher over here, but the markets are also very different, so no big deal. I say fully knowing that that's a huge deal and it's going to be absolutely ridiculous trying to figure this out, but it's fine, don't worry about it. We're gonna get to it. The other rule is that I can only get items for myself, for my character, from collecting, right? So this means doing quests, this means dropped items in the zone, and that's pretty much it. I can't purchase it off of people, I can't send it over from other characters, I can't do any of that. And then the other kicker, which is another rule, is I can only sell items directly to vendors or on the auction house. So I can't do weird trades with people and get my gold that way. I can't trade items around. It has to be selling items on, on the auction house or straight to a vendor. And that's all that we can do. The only other thing besides Durotar is that we want to be able to go into Orgrimmar, and I want to open up for that possibility because you do have other options if you have, some mounts, but not everybody has access to a Brutosaur or a Gilded Brutosaur. So we are going to open up like he did in the series, Pefalerics. He opened up Stormwind, which means we're going to do the same thing, but just for Orgrimmar. So the only purpose of walking in here is the auction house and the bank. We're not going to do anything else because, as you know, there is a dungeon here, and that opens up for even more gold farming opportunities. So we're not going to do any of that. We're only going to go into Orgrimmar to be able to use the auction house and to do any potential banking. And then, obviously, we can't leave the zone until we have paid for a WoW token. Now, whether or not we're going to do any other zones, well, I'd say it heavily depends on how long this takes. But I hope you guys are going to enjoy this video, and we're actually just going to get started here. Now, I want to talk a little bit about my plan for this, because any of the regular viewers on this channel will know that when it comes to gold making, and especially these old zones, this will take forever. Okay, the amount of hours that this is going to take is going to be very interesting, and it also kind of depends a little bit on how lucky we get on certain items and certain things that we're going to be able to, you know, purchase, or, well, not purchase, but sell, but what we can get from, you know, random drops around in this zone. Now, I don't actually know all of the different farming locations for a bunch of different items here, so I'm sure that there's a bunch of stuff that I'll eventually miss, but the first thing that I plan on doing is I want to level a little bit so we can start pretty much killing everything in the zone. And then once we've gotten that done, we're obviously going to be picking up some professions. To get started, because we actually have 0 gold, currently we have 0 copper. To get started, we're going to be picking up gathering professions. We have no other choice, so that is going to be the first thing that we do. But I'm going to get started, I'm going to do some quests, and I'm also going to pick up some professions, and we'll be cutting right over to those things. As we're walking around here, something that I actually also want to talk about is a little bit about the add-ons that we're going to be using. We're not going to be using a whole bunch of stuff to make this super easy for ourselves, but we will be using something like TSM because it'll give us access to some pricing data, and we'll be able to also track some of our sales a little bit easier. So that is one thing that we're going to have. The other thing that we're going to bring ourselves into is going to be handy notes. And the reason why we're using handy notes just as a general thing is because it'll show us certain locations of certain rares which we could easily find otherwise. So I think that that's a completely fine thing to do as well, because then we have an idea of certain items that we might be able to go for and potentially sell in the auction house. So that is another add-on. The only other thing that I feel like is realistic to have for something like this is a vendoring add-on. Now, whichever one that you want to go for is completely up to you. The one that I am currently going to use is called Peddler, and it's very simple. All it does is you can use control, and then you can right click an item in your inventory, and then it'll mark it with a little stack of coins, and then as soon as you open up a vendor, it will actually sell that item. It's very convenient and very nice, so that's kind of why we're picking those in particular. But those are about the add-ons that at least I want to use. If you want to use any other add-ons to make your life a little bit easier, that's completely okay. Something I was also considering is using some sort of a gathering add-on so we can at least track certain routes or certain locations of herbs and potentially ore. Again, that is up to you and how hard you want to make it for yourself. We've actually made our first stop here, which is going to be the herbalism trainer. We're going to be picking up herbalism as our first profession. This is going to be quite wonderful. I'm going to keep it down there just because, and then we're going to continue on picking up a bunch of quests. The first stop here is in Senjin Village, and as you can see, we've already seen a couple of herbs, which is quite wonderful, and it also gives us a good amount of experience, which is awesome. Now, I did also notice or think about the fact that fishing exists. I don't know exactly how much fishing we're going to be doing, but I do know that there's a couple of interesting items that we can get from fishing, in particular in Durotar. So we're going to pick it up just in case that we want to do something real fancy, and we're going to be using our precious copper and learning the rest, even though we don't need to. And we're going to be picking up a fishing pole. Now, it's only 1 copper, so it's no big deal, but it is an inventory slot. And something that I also want to mention, which I kind of forgot to talk about under the rules, I will not be using any like vendoring mounts or auction house mounts. This will all purely be done by running back and forth to the locations that have vendors or have auction houses, because we want to keep the challenge a challenge, because if we just take a bunch of easy steps, we might as well just leave the zone, right? what's the point of having a challenge if it's not challenging? Again, no vendoring mounts and no auction house mounts. That is a big no-no for this challenge. Now, another thing that I also want to say is that at the end of every episode, I will be going over how much my slash playtime is, so you guys can see how many hours I've spent doing a bunch of stuff. Now, I'm going to try to keep it as low as possible on the AFK timer, so it can be as accurate as possible in terms of how much time we're spending actually farming or making gold or doing whatever it is that we're doing. So that's going to be great. And then we can also, from that, kind of get ourselves a little bit of a gold per hour. I will say here early on when we're doing a bunch of questing and actually just getting the character ready to go, it'll be a little bit offset by that, right? Once we get things cooking and we start collecting a bunch of stuff that we can actually put on the auction house, well, that'll be a wonderful thing. Again, another big part of the challenge is the fact that we can't actually purchase anything off the auction house to better our character. And that also goes for bags, which means the bags that we're going to be able to get is either dropped from mobs in the zone or bought off of vendors that we can find here in Durotar. So that's going to be a big kicker as well, because we have to walk back and forth every time our bags are full and actually make sure that we can, you know, carry around the things that are interesting, but also don't spend, well, not spend too much time you know, running back and forth for very small amounts of gold. Again, that's going to be very fun, very interesting to figure out how to do that in the best way. What we will be doing though is we will be using mounts once we unlock those. That is completely reasonable to do in this challenge. So I'm going to continue along here, and I will be picking up mining real soon as well. I just want to get a couple more levels, a couple more quests done, so we can continue onwards in the zone. Something that is important to keep in mind is that all of these mobs will actually scale alongside our level, all the way up to 30, I'm pretty sure. And then we can also use something like party syncing to turn that around, but we are not going to worry too much about that until we actually get to level 30. We made our first real detour, and I decided to send it all the way to Razor Hill. At Razor Hill, we have this little NPC here called Runda, and this is where we're going to be picking up mining. This is going to be our second profession. I might swap mining or herbalism out for skinning at some point, in case we end up figuring out that that's more worth it. But we're going to start out with these two in particular. So now that we've picked these up, I'm still planning on doing a bunch of these quests, because it's going to bring us into all of the different areas of the zone. And it also lets us, you know, get a little bit of gold started here, and it also brings our level up a little bit, which also gives us more opportunities for a little bit better gear and things that will speed up the process a considerable amount. But I will be starting to, as you can see right here on our minimap, I will be starting out the collecting of ore and herbs. To make our lives a little bit easier, we're going to be using some of our gold that we've collected already to make our bags a little bit bigger. Now, H-slot bags, I think, are some of the biggest ones that we can actually obtain in Durotar, so we're going to be going ahead and buying 4 of these. This does give us a considerable amount more space, which is quite wonderful because we absolutely need it. Now, one other thing is that we can also purchase something like weapons off of vendors. Using a silver and 27 copper on a bow that does a little bit more damage. Why not? That's also probably about it. But I will say, something that is interesting about these vendors is that they sell things that we can sell on the auction house. Now, if you're looking at something like red ribboned wrapping paper, this is purchased for 48 copper. Now, on the auction house, it says that the minimum buyout for this is 2 gold and 34 silver. The region average daily sold is only 4.4, which is not a lot, right? It's a very small amount. But there could be other items where, if you include the auction house cut, where it could actually be interesting to take some of them and put them on the auction house for a chance to make a considerable amount of gold just flipping the item. Now, we haven't found anything like that or anything particularly interesting just yet. But if you look at something like, you know, a mining pick or an herbalist spade and things like this, this will be interesting for what we're doing. I'm actually, as a matter of fact, I will be picking up a mining pick and an herbalist spade just because it makes our skill a little bit higher. But if I find anything interesting that I deem worthy of potentially putting on the auction house, I will be, of course, telling you guys about it. We've made it to Ugramar. We actually took the flight path here, which is a wonderful thing. And the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to go down and we are going to put our Hearthstone as Ugramar. This is going to make it considerably easier to move back and forth in between things, which is going to be awesome. And we're also going to take a little bit of a look at the auction house, because we do have a couple of things and we might as well post them on the auction house. And I'll talk a little bit about my plans for how we're going to try and sell these things. And we did also have a little bit of a quest here, so we're going to go ahead and turn that in. Boom. And then we move on. We're not going to do any other quests than that quick intro thing, because we don't want to run around and do a bunch of quests that don't really make too much sense to do for us for this challenge. But here we are. So we have a little bit of a tiger's eye here. We're going to go ahead and post that. It's a 1 silver deposit cost, which is almost nothing. Then we have a pair of pants here, worn leather pants. They don't look that, you know, interesting, but a lot of people collect all this old stuff for, you know, collection purposes. So if there's anyone that might want this, it has a 0.015 region sell rate, and if you guys don't know what that means, this will be incredibly hard to sell. Like, you don't really need to go down into the math. If anything is under 1 as a 1 region sell rate, it'll take a lot of posts before it actually sells. But it is only a 1 silver post, right? So you could post this 54 times and you'd still be able to make 1,881. And if you do get lucky to be one of the people that actually sell one of these items, then that's awesome. And from our perspective, we need all the gold that we can get. So I'm completely okay with taking a chance like this, just to make sure that we can potentially earn some gold out of some random RNG. But again, generally with an item like this, you just have to decide whether or not you think it's worth it to post this item 20 times, 50 times, 100 times, 200 times before it sells. It's completely up to you. We're going to go ahead and do that. We have a couple of other items as well that have similarly low sell rates. I don't think I'm actually going to post that one, but we will be posting this one. And then we have some cup ore. Now, we can actually make this into bars. Generally, what I recommend is taking a look at, okay, well, the price of cup ore at the moment is 4 gold and 30 silver. And then you have the bar. It's about 5 gold. So if I go ahead and craft, you know, 47 of these, I'll be able to make a little bit more gold. And, you know, we'll take the gold that we can get, so why not? And then we also have this. Right now we can vendor this for a total of 78 copper, but if we sell all of these, we'll be able to make, minus the auction house cut, 8 gold and 58 silver. That sells is gonna be awesome. So we actually have a little bit of a thing here. We have some linen cloth, and if we post this, let's see here, we have 15 pieces, and if we post that, we'll be able to get 15 silver, which is not a lot, but it's more than vendoring it for 1 silver and 95 copper. Here's the thing though, this will probably sell after 1 post, but this is not worth posting too many times because it is 1 silver every time you post it. And then the same thing goes for this. This is awesome. We'll take a couple of gold there. Then we have a recipe here, an old one for a swiftness potion for classic alchemy. Go ahead and post this, not too crazy. And then we have a couple more gray items. I'm just going to go ahead and post these because you might get lucky every once in a while that somebody's collecting some old gray items. Now, we do have something called a primal boot here. Now, this is one of, you know, a bunch of old gray sets that people have actually been interested in getting just for a variety of reasons. The market value being 30k and the regional market value being 35k is a little bit ridiculous, but you can see that the region sell rate average is 1900 gold. So other people have sold it for about 1900. So I'm actually going to go ahead and post it for about that price since we currently don't have any. I could be greedy and set it higher, but we're not going to be too worried about that because the sell rate is it's very, very low. So I'm not going to be too greedy about the price there. So we have some herbs here, some earth roots. We'll be posting that. Some peace bloom. We'll post this here as well. And we have some silver leaf. We'll go ahead and post that as well. And then we'll go over and craft a little bit of the copper ore. Now, obviously, our next plan is going out and actually really getting into it when it comes to gathering, right? I will be going out and I'll be gathering a bunch of ore and a bunch of herbs, and then I'll be killing mobs along the way. Now, for the first episode here, I don't know how long we're gonna go for, but we'll see. Because I don't want to do, you know, a crazy amount of time, because the jumps in between the episodes have to be significant, but they don't have to be so significant that we're jumping over it in, you know, like say 50 hours per episode or something like that. Nothing crazy like that, because we do have to take it in bites to make it a little easier to understand, and also so I can just show you guys in bites what we're actually doing and what we're farming and what we get. I want to be able to show you guys all of that as well. Okay, we're done with our copper bar smelting here. We're gonna go ahead and post those on the auction house. You can actually see that I have some in my war bank, which is across my account, but we're not gonna be too worried about that. Go ahead and post those right on the auction house. And I actually heard a couple of dings, and you can see we've already sold a couple of things here. We've sold our peace blooms, we've sold our silver leaf, and we've also sold our linen cloth and a tiger's eye, which is wonderful. We will absolutely take that. We need all the gold that we can get. The main objective right now is gonna be level 20. The reason why is because we get access to flying mounts at level 20, which is going to be, well, I don't want to say exponentially, but it will increase the speed that we can actually farm a whole lot of stuff in this zone. And we will, of course, be using that to our advantage. And it's completely fair because we can actually get it in the zone. If we had to move to some other zone, I wouldn't really think it's completely fair, but because we actually get access to it from just being in Durotar, I think it's fair to do. So that's on the current agenda. We're going to be doing a bunch of quests and running around all over the place while we pick up lovely ore and lovely herbs, and everything is going to be awesome. We are back in Orgrimmar, and we are here for one reason. We want to look at the mailbox for how far we are currently, and I'll also go over a couple of the things that we currently have posted on the auction house. We have reached a goal today of level 20. Now, in the grand scheme of things, I actually want to get above level 30, because something that will happen is that I would assume, without any funny business with party syncing, the highest level that we can probably get to without considering very small amounts of experience from gathering and collecting, we could probably get to like 35, but around that time we're going to be able to start killing mobs a lot faster, and that opens up for a lot of different opportunities for farming certain materials that we can actually also sell in the auction house. I'll talk about a little bit about those here in a second. The other thing that I also want to get in over is that we are going to get access to flying eventually here when we get to level 30. So that is going to be a huge increase to the actual speed of everything that we do in this game, especially if we think about gathering. Now, I have a couple of ideas how we're going to speed up the amount of gold that we can actually make. We are going to be collecting a whole bunch of stuff with herbalism and with mining, but something that's really important to think about is that we're actually not going to be leveling this all the way up to 300 because we can't. And that same thing, and the same exact thing goes for herbalism. And that's because we can't actually venture into any of the other zones, so we won't be able to get any of the materials that actually bring the level up. So deleting a profession and picking up something else opens up the opportunity for us to flip around some materials. We'll probably be using some inscription, some engineering, and blacksmithing for that, but that is all going to be in episode 2 when we really start getting into it. But as an overall goal, I want to get to around level 30 so we can get flying, and that's when we can really kick off gathering. And also around that time we can get better gear from quests and drops and whatnot, and our character will get stronger, which is really, really important. But let's go over what we have in the mailbox so far. You can see here that we actually have 733 gold, which is, you know, not a lot. It's not a lot. We haven't done too much farming just yet. This is just, you know, a lot of these are just materials. Pretty much all of it are materials that we have collected along the ways of creating quests, but we'll take what we can get. And I did look into some of the math around the gold per hour when we can actually start flying around and farming, and trust me, this is gonna take a while, but that's okay. It's a part of the fun, if some people call it that. But anyway, we have a couple of things here posted on the auction house. Now, we did pick up a lot of these grays and white items. Some of them don't have the best sell rate so far, but the way that I'm thinking about it is some of the ones that have lower sell rates, we're only going to post one version of them, because posting multiple versions, we're just going to start, you know, filling the auction house up with a bunch of stuff that we don't really need to fill up. And since they won't be selling that quickly, we don't really need to have multiple versions of it either. So that's the case when it comes to a lot of the grays and some of the white items as well. We did get one green, not any particularly fun ones. So that's about that. Nothing of too crazy value just yet. And then we obviously have some more materials here that we've collected in the later parts of what you've seen in the mailbox. Now, one particularly interesting here is that these boar ribs. Right now we can't actually kill the boars that fast because they all scale with our levels, but this is one of the items that I was thinking about being able to farm at a pretty consistent speed. And if that, you know, has the opportunity to challenge how much we can get out of some of these herbs and ores, then we'll be checking that out as well. But I have a couple ideas in mind, and I'm sure they will do absolutely amazing because trust me, we need that gold, and it's gonna take a while. We've gotten a couple of upgrades. We've actually gotten a little bit of a sword here that I've decided to swap over to survival, because that does let us, you know, kill these mobs a little bit faster, which is what we're actually gonna need. And in the process of doing that, I also found out that we have no more quests, and we're almost level 24 here. And we do want to be able to get all the way to level 30. So we're going to have to kill a lot of mobs. I've done every single quest available to me, unless we venture into Ogrimmar. But as I said at the beginning of this challenge, we're only going to use Ogrimmar for auction house purposes, and also, you know, any vendors or anything like that. And that is it. We're not going to do anything else along those sorts. Now, another thing that I have decided, since we have to kill so many mobs, I'm going to try and go for the mobs that we can actually skin. And because of that, I decided to get rid of herbalism for the moment and pick up skinning. So the mobs that I'm going to try and kill a lot of are going to be mobs that we can skin, and then we'll get rewards from that. Right now, we're both getting, you know, ruined leather scraps, but that's because the level is quite low. And then we are getting light leather, and we're getting a light hide. Obviously that depends on what kind of mob we're killing. We also do get access to boar ribs, which are decent, but as for the leather, that stuff is going to sell really, really, really quickly. So that is going to be awesome. We also get a couple of greens, a couple of grays from killing all of these mobs, which is going to be amazing. But that is the update currently. I'll get back to you guys once we get either to level 30 or closer to it, and I'll show you what we've picked up. I'm going to try, if at all possible, to not post any of the stuff that we get from actually farming on the auction house, so you guys can see how long this takes. As an update, we are currently at 4 hours and 33 minutes. So by the time that we either hit level 30 or I see some kind of an update that I've deemed worthy to talk about, that will be the next update. So we'll see what the gold per hour and also just a level per hour-ish is going to look like, but that's currently the plan. after a bit of running around and many mob kills later, I've gotten to the conclusion that I think it'll actually be worth our time to do herbalism and mining, even though we can only run around on a riding mount. Because something about skinning is that we don't actually get any experience for skinning mobs that we kill. Obviously, the killing of the mobs will give us experience if we don't count, or if we were to compare it to the experience that you get from herbalism and mining. But here's the thing, though. I've looked a little bit at the value of the leathers that we can get, and mostly what we're getting is light leather. And this has somewhere between a 1.5 to 2, little over 2 gold value generally. This will definitely sell, and we could also flip this into, or shuffle it into something with leatherworking. But I think if we actually want to get a little bit more out of our time, because we can still kill a lot of mobs along the way when we're collecting herbs and ore, I think the better option will be herbalism instead of skinning. It doesn't mean we will never be using skinning ever again. You can see we actually got to 122. So I gave it a good try. But for now, we're going to go back to herbalism, and then we'll be on our way. If I actually do this at a reasonable pace, and I don't get distracted too much, can actually see here, we're level 24, and this is with no quest. We're almost at 25. This has taken me about 30 minutes. And that was with skinning and killing a bunch of mobs. So with herbalism and mining, I assume that it's going to be kind of similar. I think we can actually, if we really try, we can actually get more experience out of killing mobs. But if we make ourselves a good route through Durotar, and that's another reason why I wanted to do this. I actually want to figure out what will be the best route that we can do for mining and herbalism, because whenever we do get our flying mount, when we get to level 30, we will be doing that a ton. So figuring out what the best potential route is a great idea. Along the way, I think the route is going to include these rares, because the rares do have some greens and some grays and whatnot that can actually give us some more value. And that is, of course, that's what we need. And also killing the rares gives a fair bit of experience, so we want to be able to actually get that as well. So the route is probably going to be, we take a little bit of a rotation around all the rares, and then we basically just swing back and forth while we're collecting herbs. Whether or not we're going to do that when we start being able to fly is the big question. But it's a little too early to tell. I'll probably try both whenever we do get there. But for now, we have herbalism again alongside mining. And we are going to be continuing our adventures of filling up our bags. Now, one thing I did find, and I assume that there is one for herbalism as well. I didn't actually find it, but I found this mining sack on one of the vendors in Razor Hill. So I assume there is one for herbalism as well. And we can actually stick this in, like, in an equipped slot. Ooh, we might have to delete some things. This is... Wow, we're wasting gold. Oh no. We have to make sure that we can actually equip it and only have mining things. There we go. So now that means we have 20 slots for a mining bag, which is wonderful, right? That's absolutely what we want. So I'll be looking for an herbalism one as well when we pass by Razor Hill. If we can get one, that means we actually have to make a very small amount of trips, not only to Ogrimmar or to any vendors. So that's going to be very, very awesome. One downside is that we can actually only put mining related materials in here, and the same thing would go for a herbalism bag. So that's one downside, but having, you know, an 8-slot bag that we can swap in if we decide to do a bunch of mob kills instead, that'll be great, right? They only fill 2 slots, so it shouldn't be too bad. But that's where we're at right now, and we're gonna move along to try and get to level 30 here. So look at this. And you might be like, Dan, you're level 26 and you can fly. Yeah, so in the process of flying around and mining and herbing here, I was thinking, I was looking at some of the achievements because I wanted to show you guys like the achievements that we do, so you can see that we haven't moved like out of the zone or done dungeons and things like that. And I see this achievement, and it says learn the expert riding skill, and I'm like, wait, isn't that flying? So yeah, we already have flying. We already have flying, and I didn't realize that because I thought it was going to be master riding. But here's the thing. Expert riding is flying mounts, and I can't believe I haven't realized this after multiple hours of running around. But the flight speed that we currently have is 220%. So the master riding is the really fast flying, right? So right now we can actually already start flying around and collecting all of the herbs and ores that we would want. So I'm just going to go ahead and write this off as I had no idea, and yeah, I'll never talk about it ever again. So we're back in Orgrimmar, and there's two things that I want to check out. Number one, I want to look a little bit at our mailbox, but not loot everything yet, because, you know, we're not done with this particular episode. But I also want to clean out our inventory and post the stuff that we have so far. Because now that I've, you know, gotten past the whole me not knowing that you could fly at level 20, we're going to go ahead and clean out our inventory of what it has currently, just because, you know, we want to be able to post up what we have. Now, I did take out some of the things that had expired, and you can also see that we have 408 gold, which is wonderful. And to not make that run in over what we have currently, we're going to go ahead and loot this. So that's actually going to bring us up to 1,271 gold, which is still very, 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 very far away from our overall goal. But I'm going to go ahead and post every single one of the items that I have in my inventory currently up on the auction house. And then my plan is that I want to go into Durotar and I want to plan out somewhat of a flying route. You can also kind of already see my plan is to fly like this way. So we pass the rare spawn areas, and then we fly down here, and then we do a loop back around. That's mostly what we're going to do. And I'm going to test this out and see how many materials that we can actually gather up within probably an hour. And then after that, we'll make a decision on how many hours we're going to spend farming before we drop both mining and herbalism to swap it into, say, inscription, blacksmithing, engineering, and things like that, so we can turn it into even more gold. But for now, we're going to post this up, and then I will venture out and farm as much as possible. And then when we have some shuffling opportunities or moving some gold around, I will be right back with that. Farming has commenced for about an hour, and we've done the rotation around these particular rares and collected as many herbs and ores as possible. As you can see, there's a couple of updates. We're actually halfway to level 32, so our speed at leveling is going wonderfully. We're actually almost at the point where we're going to start out leveling the mobs, which means we can start killing them a lot faster. And the same thing goes for these mobs over here, where there's a lot of the rares that spawn. And there is one very interesting particular thing that I want to talk about, besides the fact of, you know, we've collected all these ores and all these herbs. I found this. A traveler's backpack. This dropped off of these Razormane mobs, where under here the Razormane grounds. This dropped off of one of those mobs. I don't think it actually dropped off of one of the rares. It could have, because I also did kill one of the rares while we were doing this. But on the loot table with my add-on here, I can't actually see that particular bag a part of the loot table. So I'm pretty sure it just dropped off of one of the regular mobs. But regardless, it doesn't matter. We got ourselves a 16 slot bag here. Now here's the thing, right? We're looking at the value of this bag, and I'm like, okay, well, is it worth it for me to equip this bag instead of potentially trying to sell it? And the way that I would look at it is we are probably most likely not going to be able to sell this bag for anything above maybe 50 or 100 gold, because there are bigger slot bags that exist that are being sold for absolutely nothing. So I think the best case scenario for us is to make our lives a little bit easier, and just me equipping this bag, because that means less trips, and that also means more time actually being out here farming, which is wonderful. Now, another thing is that I got a couple of green drops, and this is one of them. It has a pretty decent sell rate, so this is going to be easier to sell. Well, easier to sell than normal other transmog items. However, the current sword that we have, as you can see here, is a eye level 84. Now, they both have strength, which is unfortunate, but for us, it's a big upgrade of 3 damage per second. So this is going to make us be able to kill everything really fast. Here's the thing, though. We are currently halfway to level 32. By the time we hit level 34 or 35, that's when we really only get experience from collecting ores and herbs anymore. And the mobs stop really scaling with us. Which means that if we have an eye level 84 sword or a 130, it's not going to be a big difference. The mobs are still going to die relatively quickly. But it's still going to be a good amount of time before we actually get there. And if I end up using some party syncing stuff to make this a little bit more interesting along the way, I think that this is worth equipping. Because, yeah, we could sell this for maybe 195 gold, or maybe somewhere between 100 or 200 gold. But I would much prefer it if we can actually speed up the killing of mobs that try to attack us when we're picking up herbs and ore currently. At least for a couple of hours, right? I think that's worth more than maybe selling this for 100 or 200 gold. So we're equipping this, and that is going to be great. Now, another thing that we got is this imbued primal belt. This is one of the, like, I don't know if I want to call it one of the better transmog pieces. It's a relatively low sell rate. However, the value on it is pretty good. You can see that the region sale average is only 350 gold, but the market value and the regional market values are quite high. So we could potentially try and sell this for a little bit more, but even just getting a couple hundred gold for an item is awesome. So we did get another green, which is quite wonderful, because the main objective of the last hour was actually just, you know, farming as much as possible. Now, let's go over what we actually farmed here. So we have some trash up here, but let me move that down, and let me move that down. That should be it. So we got this green, and obviously we got that one bag as well, which is wonderful, and the sword. So 2 greens and a 16 slot bag. It's going to be good in the future if we end up getting too many to equip, though. Then we got 2 Shadow Gem, we got 7 Tiger's Eye, we got 5 Malachite, some Light Feathers, which might be vendored depending on the price. This is our mining sack, so that doesn't matter. We got 72 Silver Leaf, 62 Scorpit Stingers. As you can tell, we killed a lot of Scorpits. Then we also got 18 Boar Ribs, and then 3 chunks of boar meat, 1 clam meat, and then we got 311 copper ore, and then 283 rough stones, and 36 linen cloth. And then we actually also have 2 elemental water, 89 earth roots, and 128 peace bloom. So if you put all of this together, I would actually assume that we have around 3,000-ish in value if we don't count the greens. So if you just count the materials, we got about 3,000 in raw material value out of farming an hour. Now, if we were to look at the WoW token currently, on EU, it's 361k. Now, if you look and say, okay, well, 361,000 divided by 3,000, well, that means we have to spend 120 hours of just farming materials. So we need to get lucky on transmog sales to speed that up quite a considerable amount. Or, as I talked about previously, we need to use some shuffling methods and some crafted material opportunities in some of the crafting professions. Now, when it comes to mining and herbalism, as I talked about, we can actually just drop the professions and then go straight over to the primary crafting professions in either Race or Hill or in Orgrimmar. But I don't actually want to do that until we have a considerable amount of stuff, so we can spread out our materials a little bit and then go back out farming while that stuff is selling. So my plan is to farm a couple of hours And then we go back and do that whole shuffling process, and I'll talk a little bit about what my thinking is and what the different materials are going to be. We're obviously only going to be crafting the stuff that we can get access to from Durotar, so we'll see how far that brings us. But there are a couple of opportunities, so that should help us a little bit. Even if we can get the gold per hour up to like 4,000 or 5,000, that severely speeds up the process. After a couple of hours of farming here, I actually wanted to just walk over to one of the vendors to sell some of my stuff, to clean out my bags. And not only did I find a bigger bag that we can actually buy, so I bought 3 of these because we haven't found any more of the traveler's backpacks, but I also was thinking that we could buy some of the things that go straight off of the vendor here. Now I actually think that this is fine, considering that we can buy all of this off of the vendor. We do have access to something like Relics of the Past here, and some of the future expansions, what do you call them? Like crafting reagents from vendors. But because we can't really get any of the other materials that are used in the crafting of this, I mean, I guess a little bit with the Relics of the Past, we're just not going to touch any of this stuff. I think Relics of the Past are a little bit outside what our scope will be for Durotar, but the items that are related to the particular, the particular expansion, in this case classic or vanilla or whatever you want to call it, I think that those materials, because they are in Agromar, I think that those are fair game. Now, right now, I'm not actually going to be using them for straight up crafting. I bought them because on the auction house, sometimes they have a better value. Now, we didn't use very much. I mean, they cost almost nothing. We used maybe like 30 gold or something. But I also bought one of each of these like profession tools. There's a copper rod, there's a blacksmith's hammer, there's a mining pick, and an herbalist's spade. Something that I've noticed over the years of my gold making activities, people are lazy. And they will absolutely spend some gold to continue being able to be lazy. So I will be posting one of these, and then each time they sell, I will buy a new one and post it straight back in the auction house. We actually also bought a fishing pole, so now that is on there as well. And we have these, okay? So when you look at something like mild spices here, if they sell for 1 silver, and you can see that 200 of them will sell for 2 gold, we can buy this for almost nothing in terms of copper. So this is not a big deal. We actually don't want to do too much of this, but the sell rates on these are ridiculously high. So you see, for example, on the course thread here, the region average daily sold of this is 168,000. So what that means is the chances of us being able to sell this at 2 silver, for example, within 1 post is extremely high. So obviously there's going to be other people that post here. You can see there's 348 other sellers, but it is a very cheap thing. Like, we could post this 5-10 times before we even care too much about it. So I was just thinking this gives us a little bit extra gold to hold us over until, we really get things cooking. Some of these are a little bit better, like these crystal vials, for example, and then some salt. We have some red dye. And then we have some yellow dye here, which is also a little bit more expensive from the vendor. So that will cost us a little bit more. Profit margin is going to be a little smaller. That's okay. This is not really a big deal, but it's really easy for me to purchase these off the vendor. So we'll take the gold for now. But it's also good to know what we can actually buy from each vendor, so we can make some gold off of that. Now, we did actually farm a whole bunch of stuff here. You can see from my last update, the numbers have grown quite a bit. So that is absolutely amazing. And I will be doing a couple different things with these materials, and we'll go over that in a second. I did get a couple more greens, which is awesome. I posted some of it already. And we can actually take a look. This one is awesome. I don't know if it's actually going to sell for this much, but we're going to try and post it for the prices that are available. One other thing that I will probably be making very soon. Oh, that's unfortunate. Well, for now, we're going to keep that in the bags. One thing that I'll be making pretty soon, most likely, is a group on TSM, so we can start posting this stuff a little bit quicker. I don't really think it's too much of an issue because I don't post things that often. So it's really not that big of a deal, and we also get to check each individual thing and don't blindly skip over something if we didn't set the TSM group up properly. We will be posting our linen cloth. That's not a big deal. Our shadow gems are going. We're going to keep the tiger sign and malachite because I remember that there's some materials, or not materials, but crafted recipes in some of the professions like blacksmithing and engineering. There is some of that stuff that use these, so we're going to hold on to that for now. Now, for what we actually have posted on the auction house right now, we have approximately a 60k in terms of value, which is awesome. We have a couple of, you know, pricier items. The primal boots here, they're probably not worth that much. Some individual might buy it for that much, but I think it's going to sell for a lot less. So even if we take that out, we still have somewhere in between, you know, 40 to 50k, which is awesome. You can actually see some of the vendor materials already sold here, which is always great to see. So, but now we're going to go ahead and do some magic with these wonderful materials. We have finished crafting just about absolutely everything that we possibly could. There's some upsides and some downsides to all of it, and that's what I plan on going through right now. We started out with picking up blacksmithing, and in blacksmithing we crafted a couple of these simple transmog items that have a little bit more value than what they actually cost to craft. Now, the sell rates are not that crazy, but I was doing these just to see what else we could get throughout the profession. The only other thing that's realistically interesting is rough grinding stones, but besides that, there's nothing really interesting in blacksmithing because of the lack of materials. However, one of the things that we did need was tiger's eye and malachite. We also need linen cloth, but at that point I had already spent it, and we also need some light leather. If we end up getting access to all of those again and not just straight up selling them on the auction house, we can actually make about 10 additional transmog pieces that are worth a couple hundred gold. So I think I will be doing that once we have a bunch of that stuff again. Now, another thing that I did do is, as we walked around these different vendors, I picked up some of the things that they sold, right? Some of them sold some shirts, some of them sold some recipes, and since we can buy them straight off the vendor, I think they're fair game. There's also a couple other transmog pieces like these simple wildflowers and whatnot, so I decided to pick those up as well. Now, besides blacksmithing, we picked up engineering, and in engineering we did a handful of copper bolts. You get access to those pretty fast. It's around level 30 in classic engineering. Now, what you can do to get almost all the way there is rough blasting powder. You can also craft some dynamite, but this can take you all the way there. And this is where, you know, there's a little bit of a difference, because rough stone is used for rough blasting powder, but it's also used for the rough grinding stones. Now, it does take 2 rough grinding stones to make one, or rough stones to make one of these, but that's not the case for this one, right? It only takes 1. So they have different values, they have some different sell rates. I'll try both. Right now, rough blasting powder is actually about 29 gold, or silver, and it looks to be probably around 10 to 15. It actually seems pretty high right now. The regional historical price, as you can see, is about 8 silver. The regional sale average is 5 silver. So that's around the price of a rough stone. Now, when it comes to the rough grinding stones, they're worth a little bit more. But when we are thinking about these two in particular, they take a while to craft. They take just as long as making a copper bar. So whether or not we're going to do too many of these remains to be seen. But rough blasting powder, we need to make that anyway to be able to get to the copper bolts. Now, when we are going through these, we have to think about the fact that it takes time, right? So if the actual value we get out of something, like handful of copper bolts. If you look at the actual copper bars here, they're worth about 5 gold right now, and a handful of copper bars or copper bolts are about 6 gold. And the region average daily sold is what, 4-5 times higher on copper bars. So the speed at which these will sell is a lot higher. So we have to take that into consideration, because I didn't time this out perfectly, but I actually think it's worth our time to just continue farming, posting, like going back to the city, posting this on the auction house, and then straight up just sending it. I think the only times where it might be worth it for us to do like these crafts is if I have some AFK time where I need to do something else, and then we can just get a little bit more value out of me standing around crafting something instead of being locked out. Generally, if I can actually play the game, I think it'll be worth our time, like worth more time to just straight up farm copper ore. Maybe not even turning it into copper bars, because that also takes time. So we'll see what we do with that. I'll kind of take some. I'll time it next time I have a big crafting portion, and then we'll go over that. As for the alabaster pigments, based on the prices for these different kinds of herbs, I don't think it's worth it to turn silverleaf and peace bloom into alabaster pigments, because you don't really gain anything. It kind of stays around the price that it has, right? So we don't really make a whole bunch of gold out of turning it into alabaster pigments. Maybe a little bit, maybe half a silver or something per craft, or maybe 1 gold. I meant 50 silver, half a gold. But the difference is really, really small, so I don't actually think this is worth it to make, not with the current prices anyway. One thing is that Earthroot has a lower region average daily sold compared to Silverleaf and Peacebloom, so it might be worth it to change, or well, swap Earthroot into alabaster pigments if we can't sell it, that is. But I have never had any issues with selling Earthroot, so again, we might also just skip around that. Now, besides that, I mean, we don't really have, we didn't really get to craft much of anything else. We did go into tailoring a little bit, which means we can get a little more value out of something like linen cloth. I think if we end up farming like a lot of mobs to get a lot of potential greens and some more of those drops, I might actually swap out either herbalism or mining to be able to get that, because then we can craft some more things in tailoring. But it's not anything that we can see any huge value in. Where we really have to make a bunch of gold is getting lucky on some of the transmog pieces that we can pick up from the rares and random mobs. Other than that, we have to be consistent in the way that we make gold. That is pretty much the way that we can reach our goal. That's, I want to say, probably the only way, because relying on transmog sales, especially some that are pretty low on your sale rates, it's not what you want to do, right? So our most consistent farm that we have an opportunity to do is mining and herbalism. I don't think skinning is worth it next to herbalism and mining, just because you can do both at the same time. If we end up doing something slightly different, it'll be a combo with tailoring and maybe skinning. We'll find a spot where we can both skin and also kill humanoids to be able to get what we want. But generally, I think herbalism and mining is what we're gonna have to do. Now, let's take a little bit of a look at what we have now posted on the auction house. We have about 73,594 gold. So if this all were to sell, we'd actually be at around 75k, which is awesome, right? But we don't have that value just yet. We also do have a little bit in our mailbox. We have 1,545 gold. This is stuff that I've randomly posted over the last couple of days, as you can see, which is awesome. You can also see some of the vendor materials that we actually bought earlier have already sold a little bit. So I might refill those every time I visit the city. We're going to go ahead and loot this. And that's going to put us at 2,794 gold. So still quite low, but we also have just started our primetime farming operations. So this is when the gold is actually going to start rolling in. We have done a couple of interesting things since the last episode, and before I really get started in the process of trying to, well, turn out as much gold as possible, I'll be going over a couple of the things that we have done. The main thing, as some of you may be able to see, depending on where you are watching this from, I am level 54. Now, the way that I've gotten to level 54 is that I went into Ogrimmar and I went over to Chromie and I talked to Chromie to enter a time walking campaign. And what that did is that changed Durotar's level range, the scaling for it, to 1 to 71. And the good thing about that is that some of the rewards that we have been getting are worth a little bit more. And we're also getting a little bit more in terms of raw gold. Now, it's not a big difference, but it is very exciting to see the levels go up, so it makes it a little more fun, for me at least. But that is one thing. And then also, whenever we get greens, if we end up vendoring them, because some of them don't have much value on the auction house, so they might actually be worth it to just straight up vendor. So again, this is awesome to see. For now, we have 8,924 gold in our mailbox, which is actually, you know, a pretty decent amount of gold. Nothing really that stands out, but we, as you can see here, we have some handful of copper bolts, we have some alabaster pigments, and then, you know, a bunch of other small herbs, herb sales actually, and some material sales, and then there's some vendor materials as well. I think there is like 1 or 2, maybe 3 transmog pieces out here. You can see there's a linen shirt here, there's a bouquet of white roses, there's an herbalist spade, and then I think I saw one more. Oh yeah, the practice sword, right, which is a good one, 379 gold. And then you see here the arc light spanner. Now I can actually go pick up another one of these. So the arc light spanner is the engineering tool. Now we picked this up in the last episode, if I can remember correctly, where the here we go. So as you can see, I have some metal in my inventory. The arc light spanner is right here. 8 silver and 53 copper. That is all that it cost us, and we had the opportunity to sell one of these for 400 gold. Now, I actually already put one on here. I guess I forgot about that, but that is really, really awesome to see. 400 gold, obviously with minus the auction house cut, is amazing to see on something like that. So, again, that's why I bought it. That's why I'm really happy about that. And we also have some of the other ones, but I haven't seen any of those sell just yet. But we're going to go ahead and loot this, and then we can keep a fresh track of what we have. To show you guys a little bit about what we actually have on the auction house, because I have posted some of the stuff. We actually have some more sales here. We have about 73,000 in value. Now you can see I have this little loot appraiser window up here. If you guys want this add-on, it's called Loot Appraiser Reloaded. It basically tracks what you're farming within a certain time frame, however long you want to do it, and it also has the opportunity to sell some trash and destroy some trash if you don't have add-ons for that. And it's awesome because you can keep track of how long you're spending on something, and then that also keeps track of, you know, how much it is, and it gives you a gold per hour possibility and things like that, which is good. And one of the items that we actually got from this was ancestral boots, and we also got the Charger's shield. Now these two don't have, you know, super high sell rates, but it is an opportunity for people to buy this. And I think what I will be doing is probably posting these closer to the region sale average, or maybe even a little bit below, so we can get some quick sales, which is something that we really like. We really want that, if we can get some quicker sales on these, because items like these with a 0.0 something sell rate can take weeks, if not months, to sell. So it's not really something that we can actually rely on. Not that I think anyway. But we also do have some more materials. We actually have some copper ore, you know, almost 600 pieces there. and it's a little spread out all over the place. But still, it's good value, and we're up to 12,000 gold now, and then depending on how much of this sells, we'll be up to even more. Something that has been a pretty big talking point in the last couple of episodes, especially in the comments from you guys, is whether or not we should allow Ragefire Chasm. Because comparatively, Durotar, well, if you compare it to Elwyn, there are some differences that we don't have the advantage of really taking good use of. We have the opportunity to currently just farm, ore and or herbs. And then otherwise, we can farm the gray and white and green transmog loot table that's available from the rares and the regular humanoids, and also just whatever else mobs that exist in the zone. And that's about it. Because the really interesting transmog farms, well, in some of the lower level zones, exist in, for example, Northern Barrens. So after we've gotten close to this entire loot table, which, by the way, we're getting pretty close to it, we can't really farm any more transmog, right? At that point, we're just getting duplicates, so that makes it kind of useless to kill the rares and the mobs, which means we only have the opportunity to farm materials. So, here's my thing. To make it a little bit more interesting, I think it's only fair if we open up for Ragefire Chasm. Now, I will be telling you guys right now, obviously, Ragefire Chasm also has a limited loot table, so it's not like we can really farm this forever, and there aren't really any particular pieces in here that will sell absolutely instantly. So this doesn't mean that we won't have to go out and farm our regular materials and do our shuffling in between the professions. We absolutely will, but we're going to open up for the opportunity to do Ragefire Chasm because it is in Orgrimmar, which is also technically in Durotar, and that is pretty much the only reason why I want to allow it. Now, we are going to do it out of Chromie time, because then that means we don't have to queue up with other people, because if we did it currently in Chromie time, we would have some real issues with trying to complete this dungeon without any help, especially with our current gearing position. Now, it is a quick dungeon, so we can't infinitely farm this on one character. So I will be doing 10 runs of Ragefire Chasm, and then I'll be getting back to you guys on what we have then. And then I'll also show you how fast we actually completed the dungeon, because then in the downtime until the dungeon resets for the hour, we can actually go outside and farm some materials. So I'll get back to you guys after an hour. We have done 1 hour, well, 43 minutes of Ragefire Chasm. I actually do think without vendoring times and, if we perfect a route a little bit more, we can probably get this number down to between 30 to 35 minutes, which is really good. Something that I do have to keep in mind is that I can only do 10 of these within 1 hour. So if I do it in 30 to 35 minutes, I have to figure something else out that I want to do for 25 to 30 minutes. Now, my plan is we do 10 runs of Ragefire Chasm, and then I run out into Durotar, and I make a rotation of the rares that I usually kill. And within that time, I'll also be picking up the copper and all of the herbs, and that is going to be the rotation. Now, I plan on doing this for an unknown amount of time for this particular episode, so I'll be getting back to you guys once I've done a, as I just said, unknown amount of farming. We'll see how much I get done. And then I'll show you the auction house value, and then we'll also go over any sales that we potentially have at that point. And then I'll also show you the slash played. I can actually show it to you guys right now. We are currently at 16 hours and 51 minutes. So on the other side of this, you guys will have an idea of how much time I've spent doing that farming rotation. But that is pretty much what we're going to be doing, so let's get straight to it. Oh, and before I do, just to give you guys an idea of the items that I've picked up, you can see here I actually have vendored some of them if their value was too low or if I don't like the sell rate. But I actually want to give pretty much every single transmog item an opportunity to be sold on the auction house, because we could get lucky and sell it within a couple of posts, and I actually think that's super worth it, even if it's only like 50 gold. So we're gonna pretty much post everything. You see some of these for 10 and 21 gold. If they don't sell within 1 or 2 posts, we're probably just going to vendor them. But we'll give them a chance. Some of them have decent sell rates, so we'll be full sending it. But as you can see, it's nothing super valuable in particular. There are a couple of pieces out in Durotar that we can get if we're super lucky. So in the process of doing our farming trips, I really hope that we get some of those so we can fill that on the auction house. But I'm gonna post this up and I'll get straight to farming. We have farmed a considerable amount of hours. You saw last time when I did my slash played, you saw that it was close to, I think it was 17 hours. And now you can see that we are at 1 day and 4 minutes. Now, we've done quite a lot of farming in both Ragefire Chasm, but also when it comes to a little bit of open world farming. Now, right before we walk over to the auction house and I show you guys how much it is, I want to show you guys like the process of me running around in here in Ragefire Chasm, just in case some of you guys haven't seen it before, but also so you can kind of get an idea of what items drop in here. Now, in the time that I have been farming this, I have gotten close to every single green drop and gray and white piece of gear that you can actually get. We also did get some gear upgrades, but they don't matter much until we move back out, well, back into Chromie time again. But we still did get a couple of pieces that were nice upgrades. So this is a very linear dungeon. There's not really many routes that you can take. You can obviously speedrun it a little bit more if, you know, I use Aspect of the Cheetah and Disengage, but it's not really a big deal. There is one little thing that you can save a lot of time on doing when you run through this dungeon. It's right here. And I'm going to do the full rotation through the dungeon that I do. If you guys have any better ideas, be sure to let me know. But I think I've actually gotten to the point that I have at least one, if not two or more, of almost every single item in here. So what we really have to do now is wait for sales, which is not a problem because in the time of us waiting for sales, we can obviously just do material farming, which we have done while waiting for the dungeons to reset every hour. So almost at the end here. It's a very short dungeon. And we did actually get the time that we can do 10 runs down to about, I want to say, a little under 40 minutes. We had a little over 20 minutes of farming outside in the open world before we moved back into the dungeon again. Great. Now, I think that I think we might actually be able to see how many runs we did in statistics. Let's take a look. Yes, here we go. So as you can see, we did 50 runs. We killed the last boss, which is this guy right here, Lava Guard Gordov. You can see now we have killed him 51 times. We click back and forth. You can see that has now updated. We've done 51 runs in here, which is great. Good amount. We got a new green actually here that we don't have. That's wonderful. That might pop up every once in a while. So I think I'm still gonna move in here and do some more runs every once in a while. But I don't want to do it too much because we are getting a lot of duplicates, and I don't need a bunch of stuff that I have, you know, 7, 8, or 9, or even more versions of. It's not really needed. But we will take some of these pieces that we don't have yet, which is great. It's very rare to see because I haven't seen that in a bit. But again, this is what we do. We run back out. There are opportunities that you can do normally with pre-made groups here, and then you can start a group and leave it because that gives you a graveyard timer. But then you have to worry about getting put, like timing the dungeon properly. So I just do the run back out. It's not a big deal. Do a little disengage over there if you're a hunter, or if you have any. If you have about, I want to say, 80% movement speed or something like that, or some sort of a leap, you can actually make that jump pretty easily. But that's what I do to save a decent amount of time. But that's the entire run. That's all it is. And then the things that I don't want to keep, I mark them with Peddler, my trash vendoring add-on. And the rest that I want to keep, I go into my TSM group that I have and I add it to the posting operation. And then we add it on the auction house. Now, whenever my bags were full, I just walked straight over here. There's a mushroom vendor. And you can actually just vendor to this guy, which was really easy. So we didn't have to run like super far to be able to, you know, actually vendor. We could sort that out pretty quick since we can't mount inside the dungeon. And we also don't have any vendoring mounts. So that's very, very nice. Now, I'll show you guys a little bit of what we have posted, and then we can look at the mailbox of the sales that we currently have and the progress so far in the challenge. So, on the auction house, we currently have 174,470 gold in value. Now, you have to take this value with a little bit of a grain of salt, okay? Because every single one of these greens and grays don't necessarily have the value that they are posted for. I do post these at whatever the minimum price is. I'm going to do that a couple of times, and if they don't end up selling, or if there's a lot of competition on the markets, which is other people posting above me, well, then I might drop the price a little bit, because we're not looking for, we're not going we're not going at it for the long run, right? We are, but also at the same time, we're not. We don't want to be around in Durotar for too long. So if we can make some quick gold and move on, that is going to be what we want. If we had some really super rare big ticket items and they didn't have a lot of competition, it would be, well, it'd be worth a little bit more to keep the price pretty high. But a lot of these items, since they're pretty easy to get, have a decent amount of competition. So we might drop the price on some of it, but some of them are very reasonable prices, which is awesome. Now, we haven't sold too many of these items just yet, because it hasn't been too long since we actually had these, and we also need to be able to repost on the auction house and also have it be over a couple of days. But the more you have, the higher your chances of selling something are, which is great. And I believe there's also some materials somewhere on here. Yeah, we do have some copper bars, as you can see, 845, which is wonderful. That's the amount that we were able to farm. And we also did have some herbs, but I'm pretty sure it looks like those sold. So, but that's okay. We have a very good amount of stock on here. So we're going to keep farming on Ragefire Chasm in the next episode, which is going to be great. But we don't really have access to more than Ragefire Chasm, and there's still a lot of the open world drops that we can get access to. So while we're out farming, we might do a couple of hours of farming, herbs and ore, and then also killing some mobs on rotation, and then we go back and do 10 runs of Ragefire Chasm, check the auction house, see if anything needs to be reposted, and then we go back out straight to farming again. We want to actually, as much as possible, we want to be out there farming to build up our stock on the auction house, but also just to continue getting the more consistent gold, which is the materials. But let's check out the gold that we have in the mailbox. As you can see, this is over a couple of days here, which is, it makes sense. That's how the challenge is recorded, because it's a lot of hours. But we have 9,239 gold. As you can see, the big ticket items are, again, the materials. We have some copper ore, we have some earth roots, we have some copper ore again. Then actually, as you can see here, we sold a gateway control shard. Now, I did see this gateway control shard on one of the vendors. I don't actually remember how much we bought it for, but I'm glad that sold that quickly. And we also sold a beaded cord, which is one of the white items, and same thing with the nomad bands, the hunting boots, the calico bracers, and then a common gray shirt, which we crafted in tailoring. Awesome to see. Do we have any others? Some copper chain boots that was crafted in blacksmithing. And then up here, you can see that we have a soldier's cloak, which is one of the white items. We have a gun here. Gray item we bought off a vendor, I think. Maybe it's a white item. I don't remember. Then we have beaded cubs here again for 700 gold. It's quite wonderful. And then the other ones are more materials, as you can see. And then we sold a copper rod, which is another one of the, what do you call them? The profession tools that we can buy off the vendors here. So we have two purchases. We need a gateway control shard and a copper rod. But as you can see, the gray items and the white items are selling. They're not selling very quickly, and they're not selling for a stupid amount of gold, but it is gold and we will take it. So that brings us up to, let's see. Oh, and that's something that I forgot to say. In Ragefire Chasm, when we do 10 runs and we vendor everything, we get somewhere between 600 to 800 raw gold, which is a nice bonus for doing those 10 runs and getting all the, the grays and white items. It's super wonderful. But we are up to 24,412 gold. So we're making pretty decent progress. We are still very, very far away. But that is completely fine. We can actually check what the token's at right now. I have no idea. 349k. So we're still pretty far away. That is still, what, 4, 8, 12. That's still, we still need 13 times, 14 times the amount that we actually have in our bags right now. As for the slash plate, as you saw that earlier, obviously we didn't farm for the entire 24 hours. We've been going really hardcore in the last 6. So if you take that with a grain of salt, and we say the last 6 we actually made that 10k, but we also grew the stock on the auction house by quite a high amount. The amount of gold that we've made is pretty awesome. Oh, here it is. As you can see, we bought the gateway control shard here for 135 gold, and we sold it on the auction house for 475. It did sell for 500, which is why well, it's 475 minus the auction house cost, something like that. Right now it's 230 gold on the auction house, so there's still some profit to be made. So we are buying ourselves a new one. And then the other one that we needed to purchase a new one off was enchanting. Now I kind of forgot where enchanting is, because I am not in this city a lot anymore, so sometimes I forget the locations. Good thing is we can ask the guard. So enchanting is where? Oh, yeah. The other section. Further down. Go grab it up. It is only a couple hundred gold, but when we are in the position that we're at right now, we are taking the gold that we can get, right? We're paying 1 silver for it, and we turn it into 285 gold. It's absolutely wonderful. So, awesome. No complaints there. We will also be taking the strange dust and the lesser magic essence, because why not? It will sell, and we will make some profit on it. Then we also have the opportunity to buy some simple wood here. Right now it's posted for about 9 silver. And the region average daily sold is about 19,000. So a lot of people are buying this. So we're going to go ahead and buy about 200 of this. Because why not? Take a little bit of gold. Then we have Starwood. That's not really worth it. You can see the minimum buyout is about 30 silver. We could purchase it for 40. That does not seem worth it. As for these other recipes, I mean, yeah, you know what? We can pick these up. They're only silver and they sell for gold. Why not? And that is about it. So we'll go over and post this up on the auction house. And again, we're up to about 180k, and you know, with a grain of salt, it might be a little less than what the auction house says, which, you know, it's a part of what collecting transmog means. But even if this was 100k and you know, you look at the amount of time that we've actually spent farming, it's a wonderful number. Things need to sell, and in the time that we need to wait on things to sell, we're going to be spending that time on, you guessed it, farming materials. The rotation that we will be doing is going to be right around these rares, right? Death Flayer, Captain Flat Tusk, and then we have a Geolore model. We also have Sergeant Curtis, and then we also have Fellweaver Scorn. Now, so the rotation is going to look like this. We fly from up here, down here, and then a little bit around this wall, around Valley of Trials, come back, and then do another swoop up here. That's the way that the route works, and every single time we see any ore or any herbs, then we will be taking those and picking those up. Now, every time we land in an area like this, if we can get a couple of mob kills, especially on humanoids, then we will be doing that, because not only do we get a little bit of raw gold from humanoids, but they also have a little bit of a better chance of dropping us gear pieces. And those greens, we will actually be wanting those quite a lot. So you did get a hint of some materials that we have been farming, and we've been spending quite a considerable amount of time. But I will be farming way more outside of actually recording this point right now. If any of you guys watched the last episode, episode 3, you would know that we were a little bit over 1 day. So we have spent quite a considerable amount of hours, and we are now moving into the hardcore grind. because the auction house stock that we have is just under 200k, and what we have been spending time on is getting the more consistent gold, rather. And secondly, every single time that I've done approximately an hour, I'll be returning to the auction house. We go in the auction house, we post everything we have, and then we quickly do a cancel scan. And what I mean by cancel scan, I'll actually have to go back to the city, but what I mean by cancel scan is that you can actually do that technically with TSM, but the easier way to do it, considering we just have one auction house, we don't have that many items, you can do it with something like Auctionator too. And Auctionator is a little bit easier to set up, so just for the purposes of keeping this challenge as simple as possible, we are using Auctionator for the purposes of canceling. So on here, if you have some stuff posted, you can actually see we've been able to sell some stuff. All you do once you have Auctionator installed, you click on the canceling tab and you click undercut scan. Now what this will do is it will go through all of your posted auctions, and it will see if somebody else has posted their own items on top of yours. And if they have, then the chances of yours selling are obviously quite small. And if it's on some of your, say, big ticket items, then you want to make sure that those are reposted again. And you can see we have some Chargers hand wraps here. Those are 70, currently the minimum price for those are 7,500. So we do want to repost those and make sure that ours is the, most recent one that people have the most, best chance of buying. But also something when it comes to something like transmog, when people click into something like this, you can actually even see somebody posted another version of these for 900 gold. So again, that cuts into the profit quite a lot. But again, it's just a white piece of gear. It's not ridiculously hard to get. And you can see that something like the region market value average here is 105k, which has been artificially inflated by people that like to try and, manipulate prices on the auction house. So all of these astronomically high prices, you can't always trust them. So bringing the price down on this, or maybe trying to get a quick sale, which is probably what this guy is doing, it makes sense. I understand. But again, my purpose remains the same. It is really important to take a look at some of the items that you have posted and make sure that you repost them, especially if you have time for it. If you don't want to do that, that's up to you. I don't decide what you end up doing here. But if you want to try and actually be able to get more sales when it comes to transmog, not just for this challenge, but in general, you're going to have to cancel scan, especially if there is a lot of competition on the transmog that you have, even if it's just materials. Because if it's a really popular item, both on the side of buying it, but also of selling it, then the chances of somebody else, reposting right straight on top of you is pretty high. So if you want to, have better chances of being able to sell your stuff, you have to repost. So that is included in our rotation. And now, if I want to get a little bit of a break or something from doing the astronomically insane route that we have in Durotar, well, then we have the opportunity of going into Ragefire Chasm. And if you didn't watch the last episode that we had, this gives about 600 to 800 raw gold for 10 runs. And we can do those in about 35 to 40 minutes, which is really good. And not only that, we also have the opportunity to get a lot of, transmog pieces, which goes both for grays and white items, and then also greens. Now, we have farmed quite a lot of stuff in there, so we have a good amount of duplicates. There's probably a couple of pieces that we don't have at this point, but I think that we have the vast majority of it. So I'm not going to farm Ragefire Chasm too much. I'm going to rely a little bit more on the consistent gold that we can actually get out of farming materials. So that's the plan. We are going to be farming quite a lot. Now, the only thing that I haven't shown you is the current mailbox. And I haven't done that yet because I want to, again, at the end of the episode, go through how how much we've progressed and what the current amount of gold is at the end of the episode. And then again, we'll go over the slash played so you guys can see how much we have farmed from this point until the next point, and then we'll see what the gold is at. But right now we're at 24,826 gold. So the next time that you see a clip, which is obviously because of wonderful editing magic, you will see what the difference is. Also because we'll be showing the mailbox. Another thing that I'll be doing is I want to show the route a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. To not make this take too long to show you guys the route that we do in the open world, I am just going to show you where the rares are at and the potential spawn locations. Now, if you guys don't know the add-on, this is called Rare Scanner. There's plenty of other add-ons that actually will show you where the locations of rares are and the potential spawn locations. But this is the one that I've been using. It's been working quite perfectly for this stuff. And it also makes a bit of a sound when you get close. So one thing, again, when I do this rotation, I try to kill some mobs along the way too, so we can potentially get some transmog drops. And then of course we pick up ores and herbs. Now, we're going to pick up a little bit less, as I said, so we can speed run it a little bit. Now we only walk in here to check if he is here, and we can currently see that he is not. The name is going to be Fellweaver Scorn. Usually when I have seen him, he's in here, and if he, like right up here on this little ledge, he's currently not. And usually we also get a ping if he's in here, and he is currently not, as from what we can see. There's also the other two spawn points, and sometimes it doesn't actually show us anything before we walk a little bit closer. So we're just going to double check just for the purposes, making sure. But nope, there is no rare in here. So at this point, I just run straight back out, and then we go over to the other spawning locations. And on the way, we would be picking up normally herbs and ore, so we can get ourselves some consistent gold. But now we've been making our way over to Death Flare. And the rares that have the best potential, I would say, is Fellweaver Scorn and then also Death Flare. There is the Geolord model. He doesn't have too many options for good transmog pieces. Captain Flat Tusk is pretty decent, but I'd say the two best ones is Death Flare and then Fellweaver Scorn. At least from my own experience so far. But it is still a good idea to kill those rares anyway and pop down and kill some more mobs around them, just because you have the chance to actually get drops anyway. So we make ourselves a little bit of a rotation here to see if the rare is up. And it is. We go ahead and kill it. There we get a little bit of an imbued infantry cloak. Obviously this one is not worth very much, but we will take it regardless. Because why not? Plenty of other drops than this guy can drop, as you can see. Those are some of it. So now we hop on over and we check here as well. These are for the other two rares. Again, I would probably go down and kill a lot of these mobs, especially the humanoids, because there's some chances to get some extra mog. Doesn't seem like any of them are up. Along this route, we'll be picking up all of the herbs and all of the ore. Well, now I'll be making the rotation down here to the last rare. And this guy, Sergeant Curtis, he's also pretty decent. This one is the one that I see the least amount of time. And I think it's because this guy is in a very populated quest area. So especially if you're not in Chromie time, it seems like this guy is just almost always dead. But I go in here to check it anyway. We kill a couple of mobs on the way just to make sure. He is not here. This is a quest guy. So he can spawn right here. And then he also has the opportunity to spawn right in here to the left. I've seen him spawn right here as well. So he is not currently here, which is okay. And then we'd move along. Then my plan would be flying straight north again, all the way up to Fellweaver Scorn. And then we just simply make the rotation over and over. Because even if we have perfect timers on the current phase that we're currently in, that will not make sure that the timer always stays the same. Because sometimes we could get randomly phased. And on top of that, we could also, you know, randomly need to AFK or whatever. So unless we actually stand still at a rare location, it's incredibly hard to keep track of it. And I don't really think that any of the rare drops in this zone, well, any of the drops that we can get off the rares, are worth it to just stand still for. I think it's half an hour the respawn timers are. Maybe it's 20 minutes, but regardless, it's not worth it for any of the drops to stand still for that long. So that's why I make the rotation to farm the herbs and the ore. So this is what I've been doing for the last, I don't know how many hours, probably 7 or 8. And we have farmed a considerable amount. The stuff that you see in my bags is not the only part. So we've made quite a delicious amount of progress. And yeah, but that's pretty much it. In the last episode, I showed you how Ragefire Chasm works. So we don't have to do that straight up. Well, we don't have to do that right now one more time. So the next thing that we'll go to is after I've done a ridiculous amount of hours of farming, then I'll get back to you guys again, and then we'll show what the progress is looking like. Something that was mentioned to me in the last episode in the comments from one of you guys is that maybe from the blues that we actually farm in Ragefire Chasm, we can disenchant them. Now, it's a little bit problematic just because of some of the storage issues that we have, but if I do a couple of hours of a lot of Ragefire Chasm, well, then we can build up a good amount of stock. So I did not very long, I think this is like 5 runs, and we have some blues here from Ragefire Chasm. And now, if you look at the actual sell price straight to a vendor, it's like 85 silver, 93 silver, 93, 93, and then 1 gold 81, 1 gold 81. So if we can get more value from disenchanting than the sell price straight to a vendor, well, then that's what we want. And we can actually see TSM is telling us the disenchant value of these is 6 gold and 83 silver. Now, I'm pretty sure that's because they turn into dream shards, these blues. So being able to get a little bit more value out of something like blues is actually not a bad idea. And again, like, we have the herbalism and mining, but we can easily swap these out because the actual rewards that we get are not different if we pick it up again, in case you guys didn't hear that from one of the previous episodes. So we're gonna get rid of herbalism real quick, and then we pick up enchanting here. And now that we have enchanting, we get the opportunity to disenchant. And this is the button that's all we need. And we can just put it right here for now. And then we just go ahead and disenchant. So it's actually large brilliant shards. And then we have greater eternal essences. And then we have rich illusion dust. You know, this is actually a little bit confusing to me. I think it has something to do with the actual eye level. I haven't disenchanted a lot of old expansion stuff, but I would have assumed that we actually are supposed to get, like, what are they called? These items, strange dust, and then lesser magic essence, and then greater magic essence. But I guess we're not getting that at the moment, and I'm just quickly gonna buy those 2 there. So that's a little interesting. But that's okay. We had, I don't know how many it was. It's about 40. It was 45 items or something like that. But again, every time we get like one of these right here, greater eternal essence, that's wonderful. If we only get a couple of large brilliant shards, like, that's not particularly great. You can see we got 2 from that one, and that's only what, 90 silver. But you can see this one has the value of 1 gold 35. If we were to disenchant this one, oh, 1 brilliant shard. Then we have Gorewalker Treads, 3 brilliant shards. Okay. Oh, and then we actually got 3 greater eternal essences here. And that's the good one, right? Because they have a value of 7.5, right? 7 gold, 50 silver. So getting 3 of these is wonderful. It's like 22, 23 gold. And if you look at any of these that have a 1.5 to 2 gold value, well, then that accounts for, those 3 right there account for, you know, approximately like 25 items, even pushing 30 items, because some of these have, you know, under, you can see these here, 90 silver and 90 silver. So I would say that this is probably something that I'll start doing a little bit, because as we do a little bit more Ragefire Chasm to swap up the farming rotation, I don't, this is actually pretty nice because I really enjoy enchanting. It's one of my favorite professions in the current content for the War Within. So this actually makes me pretty happy that we can do something like this. Continue here. And again, we had about 45-ish blues. So we can take a look at the value. And if we just say the average value in these is about 1.5 gold, actually have here, we have a staff, which has a 3 gold value. That might be worth more to actually vendor it. Same thing with these swords. So weapons, we might actually just continue vendoring just because they have a higher value, in case we get really unlucky. But let's see. Because if we say that it's approximately 45 items times 1.5, then it's going to be like just under 70. 67.5. So we say that the blues had a value of about 67 gold and 50 silver. And we are now going to be with, let's see. Oh, we have 157 gold here, 34 gold here, and 12 gold here. So if we put these together, it'll be, we'll just say 50 on this one, and then we'll, yeah, I mean, we got 7 there. So we got about 200 gold. So we actually got, instead of 70 gold, we got about 200. Obviously a little bit less with the auction house cut, but that's pretty nice, right? Because this was about 5 runs in Ragefire Chasm. So if we did 5 more, well, then we could maybe expect, obviously this is a very, very small portion, so the actual average amount could be a little different. But if we say that it's 200 gold for 5 dungeons, well, for 10 dungeons in 1 hour, it'll be 400 gold. And we're already getting 600 to 800 gold raw, so getting that extra in materials is a wonderful thing. Especially if we're collecting transmog on the side. But that's actually just something that I wanted to show you guys. We're going to start doing this a little more, so we get some more of these materials. But that will be in the next episode, because we are now at the segment where I want to show you guys what we have in the mailbox so you can see the progress. So since I last showed you the slash played, we are now at 1 day and 17 hours. So that puts us currently at a grand total of 41 hours, which is a lot of hours. Do not get me wrong, but we did also spend, I want to say, around 10 hours just setting up and building up stock. But still, this is a hard challenge and it's going to take a good amount of time. But we have in our mailbox 26,366 gold. So let's go over a couple of the things that we've been able to sell here. As you can see, we have a ton of copper ore, right? If I actually just type in copper ore here, you can see that 10,272 of this is copper ore. I'm pretty sure that we might have some bars. We actually also have some bars here, and you can see that's another 4,000. So about 14,000 of this is just straight up copper ore. So, but you can also see that we've had a good amount of white and gray transmog sales. There's actually some of these are greens as well, but you can see 46, 47, 19, 46, 33. Like, it's not any big ticket items, at least not for this portion. But it's still a couple, it's still a couple hundred gold. I don't actually know. It might be 1,000 gold, but regardless, it's really awesome to see, and we absolutely do want to see this. Okay. Now, as you can see, more copper ore. We also, for obvious reasons, have a bunch of herbs all over the place here. You see some peace bloom as well. We don't really have any big ticket items when it comes to any of our, white transmog, green transmog, or grays. But we do have one crude battle axe here for 856 gold. This is just a regular, I'm pretty sure it's actually a gray item. And then we have a short-handed battle axe. That's also a gray or a white item. And then twin battle bladed axe of the Aurora. But you can see the 282 and 856. That's, I want to say, the highest ones. And we sold another gateway control shard here, which we can buy from the vendor. I already restocked that. And then you can see we sold another Arclight Spanner, which, you know, again, we buy that for literal silver, so that's wonderful. And then we have a Cadet Gauntlets, 190 gold, which, you know, we take those. And there's another Arclight Spanner, so we've been able to sell two in the process of this particular mailbox. So quite wonderful. I am very happy about this progress. I'll go over to the auction house to show you guys a little bit of the stock that we currently have, because we do have quite a lot of transmog, and something that people were talking about in the last episode in the comments is that I shouldn't be over posting a bunch of this stuff, because there's a lot of this stuff that I have maybe, you know, 5 to 10 versions of. And what I'm going to start doing is I might start vendoring some of it if they don't sell after a good amount of posts. Just start only posting like 2 or 3 of them, because that does, you know, it lowers the amount of time that we actually have to spend at the auction house. But again, we have some pretty good value stuff here. We have some of the primal pieces, primal cape, primal belt, and a primal buckler. And then we also have some charger shield, tribal bracers, and a couple of greens that have some pretty decent value. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the stock that we have on here. I'll just scroll through so you guys can see some of the names or the stuff that we have. And then we're getting further and further down to the stuff that's only worth a couple hundred gold. Now, we don't actually have any more materials that are going on the auction house, but the stock is approximately 225k. And I want to say that this is as close to a realistic value or an idea of how much we actually have posted on the auction house right now. So at this current moment, as we have been throughout this entire challenge, we are waiting for sales. Something that I really wanted to explore this episode was something about pets. Now, pets in Durotar are not really that insane. We can't really get, as far as I have been able to research, we can't get any pets that we can actually cage and then sell on the auction house. And that is a problem. But there is something else that I thought about, and that is flawless battle stones. Now, if you guys don't know what those are, it's the item that upgrades pets to a rare quality. We'll fly over to the auction house real quick so you guys can see it. There's also specific types of it, but this is the one right here, flawless battlestone. And as far as I can tell, you actually have a small chance of getting this to drop from any, and this it says any, wild pet battle. So I went ahead and I tried this for about, I want to say somewhere in between 2 to 3 hours, and I didn't get a single one. Now, I have been able to see a couple of forum posts and a couple of Reddit posts and whatnot, and they all say that the higher your level on your team is for pet battling, the better of a chance that you actually have to get one of those flawless battle stones. Now, with a value like 10k on the auction house, with the gold per hour that we can probably expect, it's worth it to spend about 2 to 3 hours, even if that only got us one. But I haven't gotten one yet, and I don't know how much time I want to spend on a maybe, because I have not been able to find a single confirmation on the fact that we can get a flawless battlestone. Now, it does say any wild pet battle 1, you can potentially get it as a reward. So if any of you guys know if this is possible in Durotar, or if you tried this yourself and you can send me a screenshot or something, I'd love to see it. Because if I can get a confirmation that this actually works, I feel like it's super worth it to try and spend some more time on. We could have also just been super unlucky, because for the stats that I've seen, people with almost max level teams, they've spent hours and hours on it and still not gotten a single one. But then there's other people that have been able to get a couple every couple of hours. So it's a very small amount of information. So maybe here in the comments we can talk it out a little bit more, because I'd love to try and see what's up. I also don't want to use like super high level pets or pets that we can't use in the zone. So once we get into other zones, if we don't end up using pets much for this zone, we will actually only be using the pets that we can get in that particular zone, which these Spiny Lizard, Black King Snake, and Toad, they're all from Durotar. So if we were to move into something like Barrens, we would only use the pets that we can get from that zone to do whatever pet activity that we want to do. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys, but that is one thing that I wanted to explore. So if you have any information on that, please type that in the comments down below. Something that I have also considered as a pretty worth thing, especially if I have some AFK time or I need to do a couple of things besides the actual challenge, is tailoring. This is the wrong building. I put myself outside the wrong building. Don't worry about it. So in tailoring, because we can farm Ragefire Chasm, but also because we get linen cloth from the open world, we obviously get a lot of linen cloth. We can actually use that to our advantage, especially with enchanting. So if we go into tailoring and we just start making bolts of linen cloth, we have access to some recipes. Now these recipes are only what we can actually get out of this super early stuff. And from what I've been able to tell, the cheapest recipe that we can make with our current level is a heavy linen gloves. These cost 2 bolts of linen cloth and a coarse thread. Now the vendor that we can buy the coarse thread from, it goes for about 9 copper, so that's almost nothing. And then of course the bolts of linen cloth cost 2 linen. So it's about whatever. Right now the minimum buyout is 7 silver, and with the auction house cut it might be like 6 maybe, but regardless, if we say 7 silver, this is about 14 silver. Now right now these go for 25 silver in the auction house, so we can also just consider the price of that. So if we say 25 silver plus the 9 copper, 25 silver and 9 copper, that's how expensive this is to make. Now how much can 25 silver bring us? Well, I'll just craft a couple of these so you guys can see it, because I've crafted quite a lot of these and disenchanted them. And the way that I've done it is we just make a simple disenchanting macro. And all it is, just to show you guys, it's this one here. It's /cast disenchant, and then right under it you do /use heavy linen gloves. And what this does is, as soon as this is in your inventory and you click that macro on your action bar, well, it's just going to start disenchanting it. And as you can see, we are getting strange dust out of it. And it's not only 1, but sometimes it's 2. So it's pretty nice. You know, strange dust sells for about 1 gold. And if we get 2, well, then it's 2 gold. So it's not that crazy. It's not like we're making astronomical amounts of gold. But sometimes when I'm either watching something where I'm busy doing a couple of things, having the opportunity to stand still and craft a couple hundred items is really nice. And the same thing goes for copper bars whenever we have been gathering. Same thing goes for, what do you call it, for if we make the handful of copper bolts as well from engineering. So it's super nice. And we actually also get these lesser magic essences. And if you get 3 of these, you can make 1 greater magic essence. Right now their value in the auction house is pretty high, but it's nice. You know, we probably get somewhere between 1 and 2 gold in value per craft of the heavy linen gloves, or gloves rather. So because of these bolts, I find it pretty worth it. Even if you were just a majority of the time just trying to make the bolts of linen cloth to get a little bit more value, it's pretty nice. If you need yourself a little break, or if you've done a lot of farming and you go AFK for a couple of minutes, and it's nice to have an opportunity to craft a couple of things outside, you know, the regular copper bars and handful of copper bolts, and if you do alabaster pigments as well. So there's a nice little bonus as well for enchanting. And I also found this particularly good because I did, you know, a couple of hours of dungeon farming and then also mob killing in the open world. And having these accessible out in the open world also means that we can clean out our inventory without having to walk over to vendors. And that is really nice. That's a huge bonus, and it actually saves quite a lot of time. You can just disenchant items because it obviously it only turns into the same sort of materials, and because we can have 1,000 of each of them, it takes up very little inventory space. So it's also a big bonus on that front. it doesn't really count for the real if you don't play a challenge, but because of the rules that we have for this challenge, it's a nice bonus. But hopefully that makes sense for you guys. All of the enchanting materials they have sold without any issue, and I actually showed that in the mailbox later in this episode. We've had quite a lot of sales on those enchanting materials, so it's been quite wonderful. So we're making good progress. We're still finding new stuff to do, and it's going great. Something that we have been farming a lot of when we've been waiting for our Ragefire Chasm runs to reset. Obviously, we can only do 10 in an hour, and since we complete about 10 dungeon runs in about 35 to 40 minutes, we have some extra time where we can do something else. And if that goes for auction house reposting, that's good. But sometimes I run out into the open world and we start killing some mobs as well, because there are a lot of pretty decent items that we can actually use to our advantage. So you can see these chargers, boots, the shield, the bindings, then there's primal gear as well, and there's also some of the tribal stuff, the war torn. This is all like super classic OG mog, and they're also pretty low drop rate white items. And since you can transmog them, a lot of people actually want these items. I do want to say that their value on the auction house is a little bit inflated, and you can tell that that's the case as well, because whenever you lower the price, the people that also are posting on these markets will instantly follow that price easily. You could potentially sell it for a considerable amount of gold. I have seen screenshots in the past of people selling these pieces for astronomical amounts. But we are probably just looking at, I mean, you can look at these prices, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 gold maybe. That's all we're looking for these items, because you can see the region sale average on this one is 1,400, and you can see in this one it's 500. This one is 1,900. This one is 2,300. When it comes to the purposes of actually trying to sell this stuff within a reasonable amount of time, I want to be closer to the regional sale average. Some of it I don't move too close. I just slowly start lowering the price. And it's a tactic that a lot of people don't like when it comes to transmog. But again, this is a free market. Whatever tactic that you want to use to make gold to your advantage is something that you should use, right? We are not talking about items that are selling all the time here. If you have a very, very popular market with something that is constantly selling, like if you go for something like the Time Worn set, this stuff sells really often because this is a really, really good looking set that a lot of people enjoy. Something like this is fine to keep the price up on, because if this has been consistent throughout a long period of time, and you can see a lot of people selling for great prices on here, you can also see the amount of competition on a market like this is almost nothing. So it's a little bit easier to keep the prices up there. So I would say, like, for markets where stuff doesn't sell all the time, it's fine to start lowering the prices a little bit, at least in my mind. I do want to say, if some items are incredibly rare, and we're not talking about white pieces of mog here, I would say it's probably more worth to keep the prices up, or if you're not in a hurry to make gold. But since this is a challenge where we're trying to unlock zones, I will start lowering the prices, and if somebody else comes in to start flipping my items, I mean, I'll take the gold and I move on. Because the way that our gold per hour looks right now, if we actually try really hard, it's about 3,000 or 4,000 gold an hour. So if we sell any of these items, these top value items that we have here, we save hours, many hours, like 1 hour per item. So again, I'd love to be able to sell those for those prices, because why not? It helps us out by a ton. Another thing that I wanted to show you before we actually move into some of the progress that we've made today with our usual farming routes. If you want to see a little bit more about the farming routes that we're using in the open world, we've gone over that in the last episode, in episode 4. Make sure to check out all the other episodes as well if you're interested. And we've also been in Ragefire Chasm. Now, I don't exactly remember the amount of hours that we ended up on in the last episode, but right now we are 2 days and 10 hours. So in total, that's about what, 58 hours and 58 hours. So we're at quite a lot of hours. We've spent a lot of time here. Again, this is something that is completely insane when it comes to being any type of efficient with gold making, but I have really been enjoying this challenge quite a lot, and pushing myself to be really creative with making gold in all sorts of ways is really fun. So it's good stuff. We're making good progress, but that's how much time we've spent. So if you guys watched the last episode, you'll know how much of a time difference we've gone over. So without, okay, I'll take this all out. This is some expires. The progress that we have made has been quite glorious. It's not anything insane. We still got a ways to go, but I do want to show some of the gold that we have been able to make. Now, we did both gather quite a lot, and we also did farm a considerable amount. One thing that I want to show you guys is the gateway control shards. We actually got insanely lucky, and we were able to sell 5 gateway control shards. These all sold right after each other, almost, because I sold the 2 that I had on the auction house instantly, like right after each other, and then I was like, okay, well, that's insane. And to not have to restock them super fast again, I bought 3 additional ones, and they all sold. Now, I posted them up on the auction house as well, and those items actually are not they're now back to a reasonable price again, because selling them for 1,000 gold was pretty insane. That's the highest price that we've seen so far, but you can see here that's the price that it was up to, but now it's down to 230 gold again, which is not a big issue. I mean, we buy them for 135 gold from the vendor, but we absolutely take it. It's a huge amount of gold to make from a vendor item, so really happy with that overall. We also sold one of the patterns that we've been able to get from farming. I'm pretty sure that this was a open world thing, but it could have also been from a vendor. I kind of forgot about that, but 474 gold, we take it regardless. There's a lot of materials, as you can see, some of the enchanting materials that we've been getting. There's a good amount of them as well. Then you can see here, all of these items, there are some of these are greens, and some of these are white and gray items. Not anything of particularly crazy value. Something that I've also decided is that to make sure that we don't overpost a bunch of this stuff, if we have greens that have somewhat low value, or if we have 5 of them already, they are going to get disenchanted, because that way we can get some instant, potentially more higher value out of it than vendoring it. But you can see something like this shadow wand right here. It vendors for 2 gold and 11 silver. So the chances of getting more value out of it from disenchanting it is not that high. Obviously, we have the opportunity to get some of the greater magic essences, but again, or the greater eternal essences, but that's mostly from blues. So when it comes to weapons, generally we will vendor them if we already have too many of them. And the same thing goes for whites and grays, because overstock in the auction house, I mean, there's no reason for it. Also, if the greens have, I want to say, under 50 gold of value, and we already have 1 or 2 posts on the auction house, it's getting disenchanted as well, just to, you know, make it a little bit easier and get some more consistent gold from enchanting as well. So that's why you can see a lot of enchanting materials here in the auction house. We have started to disenchant quite a lot, because posting hundreds and hundreds of items and reposting them, it does take quite a considerable amount of time, and we want to spend as much time away from the auction house as possible, but we also want to be able to sell our stuff. So we're going to start prioritizing certain items and not, you know, posting too many duplicates. It's making some good progress. As you can see, we still have 33 additional mails, so we go over that. Another sale is beaded wraps here of the Fire Flash. Really happy with this one. It's 2,000 gold. I'm pretty sure this was a green item. I'm pretty sure, from the open world. Yeah, this is an open world drop, and quite wonderful to sell that for that price. Yeah, it probably sold for this one 2,183. Really, really nice. Super awesome. There's some more some more expires, so we have to post up again. But anyway, this is another 24,574 gold. So we'll go ahead and loot this up. Some good progress in here. one thing that I do want to, because we did do a lot of gathering, which is on the far end of this. I want to get back to some more gathering, because recently, as you could see from the start, like from the start of the mailbox, you could see a lot of enchanting materials and a lot of, you know, just straight up transmog items being sold. Enchanting is good, but the gold per hour when it comes to enchanting, well, disenchanting mostly and running Ragefire Chasm, is not super high. It's decent, but it's not super high, because we do get the 600 to 800 gold raw gold value, and then we get an extra, I want to say 500-600 gold, maybe actually a little bit more. I think it's closer to 700 or 800 gold, because the values on the items have gone up a little bit from when I started. It's closer to 700 or 800 gold for the gold per hour, because when you consider that it only takes 35 to 40 minutes to run through Ragefire Chasm in 10 runs, it would be closer to, I want to say, 700 to 800 gold. So we probably get in total the raw gold and the enchanting materials from Disenchanting. I want to say it's like 1200 to 1400 extra gold. Really, really nice. But again, if we don't get any transmog sales, it's not that great, right? We're looking at 1200 to what, 1500 gold. If we do gathering, on the other hand, with mining and herbalism, we're going to get a consistent 3000 gold, and maybe even more if we do turn it into copper bars or a handful of copper bolts, if that's worth it. Or alabaster pigments, if that's worth it for some of the herbs as well. That's one thing that we actually haven't done in pretty much since the last episode, is herbalism. I did pick up mining, and I had it for a considerable amount when we were running it around, killing mobs as well. But we should get back to some more herbalism as well, and some mining, because I think that's going to be a little bit more consistent gold. But again, I really enjoy the enchanting, so we'll see what happens. I'm actually happy with just doing whatever I feel like I'm doing. But this is another 4,942 gold. The big ticket item here is the Primal Buckler. This is one of those sets, the white quality sets that people really enjoy. So this is something that I want to take. 3,800, super nice. I can't complain. And then the rest of this is a bunch of random materials. You can actually see that we've been selling crawler meat and raptor eggs. And I think there's also some of the other materials. So, well, there's some rough stones here, and some more of the enchanting materials. But there's a lot of the Scorpit stingers. We sell those too, so that's nice. Awesome to see. This does, however, put the grand total at 82,977 gold. We're still quite far away from our overall goal of, well, right now, 346,000. I want to say that our gold per hour, if you just look at the mailbox and we consider some of the raw gold as well, it is somewhere around 3,000-ish gold at the moment that we make an hour. This obviously heavily depends on what we are able to sell in the auction house, because one of the things that we just went over was the Primal Buckler. When we sell that for 3,800, well, we save an hour, maybe even an hour and a half of farming consistent gold. So it is really, it's a big deal being able to sell one of those items, and it does a lot for our overall gold making. Now, my plan is overall to just record the whole thing, speed it up so you guys can watch the progress, and then every time that we do something with the inventory or we move some things around, I'll talk a little bit about what items we keep, what items we don't keep, and then what we do with the materials. I know I've gone over it a couple of times in segmented pieces in some of the previous episodes, but this way you get a full view of 10 runs and what I do while actually doing those 10 runs. So hopefully that makes sense, and enjoy. our bag is currently a little bit full, and what I do around this time is I get rid of some items. Now, when it comes to these grays and these white pieces of fog, if I already have quite a lot in terms of duplicates, they will get vendored. I don't want to mark them as trash because I don't want to accidentally vendor them if I am reposting my auctions or something like that. So I just go through and manually check it and see if there's any of them I want to keep. We obviously can't disenchant them, so this is our only option. The other thing that you saw is that we had some weapons here. When it comes to the blue weapons, at least from Ragefire Chasm, I personally think it is worth a little bit more to just vendor them straight up, because as you can see, when we're disenchanting these items, we could just be getting large brilliant shards, and one of these is worth about 60 silver. Obviously, if you get multiple, it's pretty good. And the other great thing about disenchanting these blues is that you get the other enchanting materials as well. And that's kind of like where you want to be if you get lucky. We're getting pretty unlucky here. That's actually kind of insane, but I wanted to show you guys. I'm just not. Are you not going to allow me, game? You're not going to allow me. Okay, but regardless, there it is. There is one of the other ones. Rich Illusion Dust. You can see it in my inventory. The other one is these Greater Eternal Essences. You've seen me sell them all the time on the auction house. This is how we have been farming this, and I can already tell you that there's quite a lot of it in our mailbox at the moment. But all the blues get disenchanted except the weapons. Those I usually tend to just straight up vendor, just because they have, you know, between 2 to 3 gold in vendor sell rates. So obviously, if we end up getting a Greater Eternal Essence out of disenchanting a weapon, it's still worth it, because one of these are worth somewhere between 8 to 11 gold. So it's super nice. But we have so many other blues, and it's guaranteed to get gold, a little bit more gold, especially if we were getting large brilliant shards. I'm sure there is some math that we could do to figure out which one is worth more than the other. But anyway, that's how we're doing it. When it comes to the greens, I actually keep every single green there is. If we have a lot of duplicates, as you can see on these ones, I disenchant them. When you consider the low sell rate on a lot of these items, you can't expect to be able to sell too many of these. And since we're not going to be in Durotar for months and months and months on end, the chances of us actually, you know, spending proper time on selling some of these items that have a couple hundred gold in value, I think it is worth way more. As you can see, we got a lot of the Greater Eternal Essences because we're disenchanting green weapons. They seem to have a higher chance. But regardless, getting this, right, 4 of these is about 40 gold, which is super worth it, right? Instead of having duplicates on the auction house that you post 1,000,000 times and get almost nothing for. So I absolutely think that that's the way to go. Now, we do have some items here that I don't have any duplicates of, so we are going to keep those. And it might also, I might actually have duplicates of them, but just not this particular version. So if I end up walking over to the auction house and figuring that out, well, then I am, of course, going to disenchant it. But usually, if the item is worth less than 100 gold, I will mostly just disenchant it at this point. Just to keep the amount of time that we actually also spend in the auction house a little bit low, because it is usually, it's quite a lot of time that we spend there, both on posting but also on reposting, and we want to spend as much time farming as possible. But I'm gonna stop yapping now so we can continue the rest of these runs, and we can look at what the final results are. 10 runs have been completed. And we are going to empty out our inventory a little bit here, and then we can take our final looks. And as I said before, all the items that we have a reasonable amount of duplicates of, we are straight up vendoring, unless it is greens, of course. Because if it is greens, well, here's the one that's under 100 gold value, so we're just gonna go ahead and disenchant that one. It's another blue. It's a green we currently don't have, but it only has a 10 gold value, 11 almost. We're gonna disenchant that. Same thing goes for this one. Boom. And vendor the rest of this. 34 gold. Gonna disenchant it just cause. Any other? Disenchant this one as well. And then this gun and this axe. This goes bye-bye. As the shield, we'll keep it. And then the rest of this gets disenchanted. Now, you can see that the currency looted that we've had is 651, and that is pure raw gold. Now, on top of that, for the items that we've vendored, I would wager that we've gotten approximately 100 gold, so it's about 750. And then, on top of that, when we're about finished here, we can talk about the greens. We did get one recipe that we've actually sold one off before, but as you can see, we currently have 5 of it on the auction house. It's not that big of a deal, but we have been able to sell one for 142 gold before, so we'll count it. Now, we did get one chest piece here for 227 gold. Then we also got another Discipline's robe here, which actually has a market value of 49 gold, so it seems like it's recently been brought up a little bit. So I actually think this is a maybe. We'll hold on to it for now. If the price is still good, we'll post it, just because the region sale rate is 0.022, which is decent enough. You can probably sell pretty quickly. So we'll hold on to that. Then there's also this one, Pioneer a Tunic, and this one goes as well. The market value is kind of low, but it's recently gone up. And then the best one out of all of these is the Journeyman's Vest. It is a pretty decent item. It doesn't look like, it looks pretty cool. It looks pretty decent. But overall, we're not keeping this for the looks for ourselves, but rather on the auction house. It has a decent value. The region sale rate is 0.012, which is pretty reasonable for a lot of transmogs, so we take those. So if we count this into it, and the region sale average is actually 300 gold. So if we just say that, we'll put this up to a little over 1,000 gold with the possibility of these. This one is probably also a couple hundred gold. So if we're being at least somewhat reasonable, we'll call it 1,200 gold so far. And then we also got 317 linen cloth. Now with linen cloth, we would make these into bolts, and then after we would be disenchanting the heavy linen gloves. Now the heavy linen gloves, they can get these, the lesser magic essences and the greater magic essences. They will also be able to get the strange dust. Now if you just look at these, you'll see that TSM says that the disenchant value is about 1 gold 74 silver, which is, I want to say, pretty accurate because of how much strange dust you get, and then also for the lesser magic essences or the greater ones. But still, we go from having something that is worth maybe 20 gold at most, right, if we're talking about the high value of linen cloth, and we turn it into 1 gold 75 silver, maybe even 2 gold. Pretty reasonable. And you know, having some time to AFK once you've done, you know, maybe 20-30 runs or something, having some time to AFK, craft some bolts, and come back and do some disenchanting is pretty nice. So again, let's say that that's a possibility. That's about 75 crafts, so we'll say another maybe 100 gold on top of that. So what, 1,400 or something? Then we also have these, which 7 gold, that's another 100, so 1,500, maybe 1,600 here. And then we have another 500 gold. I want to say these are probably more around 10 gold at the moment, but we'll call it 500 because auction house cuts. So that puts the total value of these last 10 runs at about 2,000 gold. Now, I obviously didn't stop the timer here, but at a really good setup, it takes us about 40 minutes. So if you consider that, we made in value, but also most of it is raw gold. The materials are really consistent gold. So it's pretty good. Even if we cut out the we remove 500 gold and we only consider this the materials and the actual raw gold, it's still really good. Because if you look at the 2K for 40 minutes, well, 20 additional minutes, it would be another 1,000 gold. So it'd be 3,000 an hour. We can't do much better than that if we do mining and herbalism. However, it is nice to swap things up, and then I also get to do some of the rare rotations, and if we have run out of any of the open world drops, it's also a good idea to do that. But other than that, that's the usual rotation, so you guys can see, like, this is how we do it. This is a good average of how much we're getting. Obviously, the enchanting materials could be way different for the next 10 runs. It actually usually is, either higher, lower, or about the same. It can change quite a lot. And the same thing goes for the green items, right? You can see that there's some of these I don't even have, right? This Journeyman's Vest, this is the first one that I've seen, and I've done close to 200 runs of Ragefire Chasm now, so it's a big deal. Oh, and here we are. We're selling some we're selling some gateway control shards as we're speaking, and I actually had 3 posted. So I'm gonna jump over here real quick to the vendor. There's multiple vendors that actually sell these. So that's nice. We've been able to sell a good amount of these, which is really, really cool. We're going to go over and post this straight up on the auction house, and we'll continue about our farming. Something that we will be doing is a little new. It's not really insane, but we will do the daily quest that pops up here from cooking dailies, basically. If we have an opportunity to do it within Orgrimmar or Durotar, we will be doing it. If not, we won't. The one we had to do today, we had to kill 3 mobs around in Orgrimmar, so that's fine. And then we got one of the awards, which we can use right here, one of these awards. And I bought imported supplies. There's also the crate of tasty meat, but as far as I can tell, this is not worth it because the meat is worth silver. And it also takes 2 of these to be able to open one. So we don't care much for that. And since we can't move into any other zones, we're buying imported supplies. Because these recipes, they're all Cataclysm related, as far as I can tell. And even if they were Classic related, the good recipes, we will not have access to it yet. But imported supplies, it can open anywhere from 5 to 55 of these, which are cocoa beans. So, pretty awesome. These, you know, it's not that much value, but they have a region average daily sold of 332, so they should sell at a reasonable rate, and we get access to one of these every day. And right now they're posted for 1 gold, 75 silver, so we get an extra 70 gold. Not anything big, not anything particular, but it is a nice bonus. And also for completing the quest, we actually got 23 gold as a reward, so we take that as well on top. So I wanted to feature another one of these daily cooking quests, just so you guys can see another one of the rewards. So I'm quickly going to finish up this quest, and I'll be right back with you opening the bag. Here we have it, and we're going to go ahead and complete the quest. Got ourselves 23 gold. Lovely. And then we open up the vendor as previous. Buy one of these, and we get ourselves 47 cocoa beans. So this one is not too bad either. We have been able to sell the previous ones because obviously that was for another day. Gonna go right on the auction house for 2 gold, and you know, it's not anything crazy to look at, but getting 23 raw gold and then 90 gold in auction house posted value, and they did sell, and these probably also will sell. So, you know, I take it. If we can get something out of it, why not? It's really, really simple, really fast, and it also makes sure that we progress a little bit in cooking, because once we get to future zones, we're probably going to start using that a lot more. Guys, we have finally done it. We have reached an awesome milestone. You are not going to believe it. You thought we were already at a token? No! We still got plenty of farming left. Okay, I'm sorry. I swear I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Anyway. Anyway. Here is the mailbox. We have a couple of interesting sales route here. You can already see some of it. But what we actually have been spending time on since the last episode has mostly been reposts on the Arsenals and Ragefire Chasm. That's most of what we spent time on, and as you've seen earlier in the episode, I kind of explained what the gold per hour from that dungeon is like. And I also really like it just because it's really simple to just go ahead and farm a couple of runs and turn your brain off and run through all of that and clean out your inventory, go over, post on the Arsenals, and run straight back into the dungeon. Now, it's not perfect, but as we did a bunch of gathering, we swapped over to this as well, and it's been good stuff. So let's go over a couple of the sales. As you can see, we are all over the place, but there's a lot of enchanting materials scattered throughout here. Some we posted in bigger portions, some we didn't. Here we have multiple buyers on 992, but something that you can see, which I actually also showed last episode, we have gateway control shards here, and we have 14 of them. This is a lot, okay? It is only 218 gold, and by that I mean we buy this for 135, so that's what, 65 plus 18, so 83 gold, but still 83 times 14 is, you know, it's not a small amount to think about, right? It's about 1200 gold, 1200 gold. It's a pretty cool amount that we can actually make from buying something off a vendor, posting it on the auction house, and selling it. I will absolutely take it because it saves us quite a lot of time. Those are quite awesome. But besides that, we have a couple of interesting sales here. We have some ancestral boots for 1000 gold. This is a white item. And we have the primal belt for 2375 gold. Also a white item. Very awesome to see a sale like that. And besides that, we don't really have anything in particular out of like actual gear pieces. We do have a strong fishing pole here that we bought off a vendor. I actually don't think I restocked this. So that's something that I'm going to have to run over and buy a new one off because we don't buy it for very much, so that's pretty cool to see. And then there's the grizzly belt, which is another white item, and the warped leather boots, I think those are greens. But again, really awesome to see a rusty warhammer for 103 gold. But again, the overall milestone that we reached for this video is we are over 100k. This is great. There's still quite a long way to get up to the token, which is currently at 356k. So we'll see whenever we get close to that number, what will be the final thing that we focus on. One thing that I got yesterday was a Blingtron 6000 gift package. Now, this obviously is something that you get off of Blingtron if he is currently spawned in the city. Now, in all my time doing this, I've seen him a couple of times, but I thought, hey, I can't make him, but if somebody else puts him, you know, out somewhere to do the quest, I feel like it's only fair if we do it too. Considering we can only get this once a day, I don't think it's like that bad. We don't get much of an advantage, even if we get lucky on some of the drops. Now, some of the actual drops that you can get, there is Lil Bling, which is the pet. And I'll go ahead and show you guys real quick, just so you can see how you type. Oh, if we just do this, it should show up. There you go. 1500 gold value currently on Terran Mill, which is not insane, but I wouldn't mind getting something like that. The other thing that we can get is we can get a couple of pieces of Fellhide, which is a couple hundred gold. Wouldn't mind that either. We can also get a Chaos Blaster, which is actually, it's bind on pickup. I don't actually know if these scale, so that's a interesting question. Now, other materials that seem to be on the loot table would be slices of bacon, which, you know, not a big deal. There's also infernal brimstones. We can get a couple of these. Also, again, not that big of a deal. There's also Fellwort, which is about the same value as something like Fellhide, so there's that. But it's not like that insane. And then there's a couple other greens that are also bind on pickup. But besides that, it's a lot of random trash that you can get out of it. So the best possible thing that we can get is the pet, Lil Bling, or a couple of the decent, what do you call them, Legion materials, because that is kind of where we want to be. And we did not get any of them. However, some of these trash items actually do have a little bit of value. You can see it's 35 gold. So we take those, and in future days, I will probably most likely be doing Blingtrons if I see them around. And then I'll just record whatever loot that we get from it. But I feel like that's a reasonable thing, because we can't make it ourselves, and it's only a daily quest, and it, you know, it's a little extra RNG in the zone. Something we did in the last episode is we went over the farming process of Ragefire Chasm. Now, with Ragefire Chasm, we also, in the waiting time for, you know, getting the opportunity to do another 10 runs, because we complete about 10 of them in 40 minutes, give or take. That means we have 20 minutes of figuring out something else to do before the dungeons actually start resetting, so we can run it again. Now, what I've been spending my time on has usually been gathering when we wait in that period. Most of the time, I also just have the opportunity to clean out my inventory, do a little bit of crafting, and do some more disenchanting, because tailoring and enchanting makes a great combo, especially with Ragefire Chasm, where we farm the linen cloth. But every once in a while, I take a break from Ragefire Chasm, and then we go out into the open world. Now, we do kill the rares and a couple of mobs, just because there's a lot of stuff that can drop from here. A lot of pretty decent greens and some white and grays that we want on the auction house. Now, we do have a lot of this stuff, but we have sold some of it. So being able to get a little bit more of it is absolutely something that we would want. So I'm going to record a little bit of this gathering session so you guys can see the rotation. I have talked about it in previous episodes, but it's mostly been talked about, and I kind of just showed you what the route was. Now I'll show you guys what it looks like when we actually pick up the herbs and the ore and do a little bit of a speed run, kind of similar to what we did in the last episode. But I hope this makes sense for you guys, and this is also just because you can use it as a reference if you want to do something similar, but also just to show you guys what the farming process looks like. As you can see, that's a little bit of the farming rotation. I've made a couple of laps here, as you saw in the sped up version of my recording, and we haven't, you know, gotten any crazy amounts, but it's about a fourth of 1 hour, and in that time you can actually see the amount of materials that we've got. So if you times this by about 4, then that's what we get. So we get usually around 400 copper ore, and then about 100 of the herbs, each of them. Now obviously, depending on the hour and how fast we are, and whether or not we spend a lot of time on killing mobs instead, that changes a little bit. But this is what we spend our time on alongside the Ragefire Chasm runs and Tailoring and Enchanting. And those are pretty much the only things that I'm doing at the moment. Because those seem to be most worth our time. And that also, you know, besides that, we have a couple of very small things that we do, like the cooking dailies, but this is mostly what we're doing. And then every single time we get some new items, we obviously fill them up on the auction house. We haven't gotten any items that we don't already have on the auction house so far in this particular farming session, but there's a possibility that that happens further on. But hopefully this makes sense, and if there's anything else that you guys want me to show or you guys want to see, make sure you let me know down in the comments below. So we just gotta put in the work and work on the grind, and yeah, let me know again what you think, or if there's anything else that you might want to see. We're at the point where we are going to go over the slash blade and look a little bit at what we have gotten in sales. Now, the slash blade currently looks at 4 days total. So we have spent quite a lot of time on this character, and at this current time we are at 110,519 gold. Now, in our mailbox we have, boom, 28,459. Pretty decent amount. There's a couple of interesting things in here, and we'll go over them real quick. Now, you see, again, we have some gateway control shards, and I actually didn't double check this, but somebody did take this down to 100 gold, and I didn't notice when I was posting it. So one of them sold for a loss, and I actually am not really sure if the price went back up again, because I just remembered it. Okay, well it did, so it's back up to 200, so we can start restocking them. But it is a little unfortunate that that's the way that it's put together. Some people taking them down below what I can buy them for from a vendor at least, but we still take the profit from 135 gold up to that point. Again, you can see that we also have some materials here, some cuppers, some herbs as well, and then we have we have a cracked buckler. This is a gray piece of mog, a shield. And then we also have Charger's bindings here for 2,850 gold. This is an awesome one. And those two together, I mean, they count for like an hour, maybe even an hour and a half if we're being nice. So that's a really, really nice sale. We're really happy about that one. And then you can see we have some more materials, obviously enchanting materials, and then some more herbs. We did get a couple of, you can see here, large bore blunderbuss, and then the heavy recurve bow. Embroidered boots. These are all vendor transmog that we've been able to buy straight off vendors here in org, so that's pretty nice. Other than that, you can see that we have, you know, some more smaller pieces, and then we have another gateway control shard, some more materials, mostly materials outside of those like couple pretty good ones. Again, we have some greater eternal essences. We've been spending the vast majority of our time just farming Ragefire Chasm, but you can see that we also did a good amount of gathering, swapped it out. Since the last episode, we spent a lot of time on both, so it's pretty good. We haven't sold that much transmog, as you can see, which is why I'm doing that much material farming, because otherwise the progress that we make on this challenge is quite limited. But still, 28,459 gold, pretty good. It's a very similar number to some of the previous episodes of how much we progress. So something that has popped up today while actually flying around farming here is the Midsummer Fire Festival. And this is located in Durotar, which is wonderful for our advantage. Now, I will say that we, as far as I remember, will not be able to like realistically do all of this, just because some of it requires you to go into dungeons like this one. We can't do that, but things that we can complete in the zone to be able to get these burning blossoms, that is what we want. because there is vendors for this Midsummer Fire Festival, which is absolutely something that we want to pay attention to, because we can get some decent value out of it. I'm gonna fly over into the city so you guys can see what I'm talking about from the vendor. We've made it over here, and we have a couple of quests to turn in to get some more and burning blossoms here. And we see that the festival tail spinner wants you to take the summer incense to a festival scorch ring outside any horde settlement. That one as well. Turn this one in. Boom. And then we get another one with the torch tossing game. Then win the torch tossing game and then speak to the master flame eater. Now there's also this one. Go to the new twilight camp south of the Black Fathom Depths. This one we cannot do, but we will pick up the quest regardless, just to make sure that we're doing everything we can. Now, we're going to go ahead and also check the vendor here. And as you can see, we have a couple of different things. Now, most of this stuff is really cool, but unfortunately it is warbound. However, there is a couple of things that we can actually get from this vendor, and one of them is a pet. This one right here, Blazing Cindercrawler. You can see though it's 350 burning blossoms, so it's obviously going to take us quite a while to be able to farm enough of these burning blossoms. But if we have the opportunity to farm enough of these within, you know, the time that this event is up, but also within the time that we're actually here in Durotar, we have the chance to actually earn a decent bit of gold. Now, these are probably going to go down in value a little bit while this event is up, because people can farm this stuff. But there is two different ones, two different pets here that we can actually care about. There's also this one. Not sure if we can actually turn that into a pet. But besides that, we don't have many other options, at least from what I can remember. But we will be spending a bit of time on this because, you know, we might as well. It's a little different, a little additional activity, and we'll see what we can do. Another thing that I wanted to talk about while I'm flying around here farming, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that I've been doing for gold, you know, throughout the challenge, but also here recently. And you'll see that again later in the mailbox when you see some of the sales. And one of them is going to be milling. Now, TSM can actually tell you the mill value of what these herbs are. And as you know, we have Silverleaf, Peace Bloom, and Earthroot available to us in Durotar. Now, it is important to remember, unless your TSM settings are completely perfect and set up properly, the value, the mill value that it'll show might not be completely correct. So I would recommend not only doing your own testing, but also, if at all possible, making sure that you change up your operations and make sure that your values are correct for how it calculates the mill value. But the way that I have been looking at it, also based on my own numbers, when it comes to milling, you actually get a little bit more out of Earthroot. The proc chances have been a little bit higher. It's not by much, but a little bit. And the proc chances for when you mill 5 of these herbs, and you have to remember it is 5 of these herbs each time you do 1 mill, you get between 2 to 2.5 alabaster pigments. The reason why I say 2 to 2.5 for Silverleaf and Peace Bloom is because over the time that I've done it, the number has been between those two. So the way that we can look at that is we take the value of 2 alabaster pigments to 2.5, so half of 1, and then we know how much potential value we can get out of it. So if we look at 5 of these, we can go on Earthroot after. If we look at 5 of these, right now on the auction house it says that the minimum buyout is 3 gold. So in total that would be 15. Now alabaster pigments, the last time that I looked, and also right before I went out here so I could talk about it, they were about 7 gold. So right now, if I got 2 of them, that would be 14. But if our average is on the higher side for a good rotation, well, then that would be an additional 3.5, which is half of 7. So we could say that it's maybe 17, 18 gold. And at that point, okay, we might consider it, right? But that still means we have to be lucky. So in most cases, with the current prices on alabaster pigment being around 7 gold, it is not worth it to do this unless we are at a potential where, let's say, it's under 3 gold. If I can sell my herb on the auction house for under 3 gold, well, with the current price of it being 7, it's more worth it to make the alabaster pigment. The same thing goes for Silverleaf. It's the exact same, pretty much almost the exact same numbers in terms of range. Now, when it comes to Earthroot, it actually has been a little bit higher. I don't know if it's just because my sample sizes are not big enough, because I haven't done thousands of mills. I've only done hundreds, I think. I might be over 1,000 now, but I'm not entirely sure on that. I will say, though, the numbers have been a little bit higher on Earthroot, so there might be something along those lines. And when I say higher, it's been between 2.4 to 2.8. So it's a little more acceptable to mill Earthroot more of the time than Peace Bloom. And a lot of these, like all 3 of these herbs actually range in similar prices. Most of the time, they're somewhere between 3 to 4 gold. So if alabaster pigment is around 7 gold, most of the time, the only one that I'll consider milling is going to be Earthroot, because that has been the one that has actually proven to give me some higher numbers. I don't really know. Again, I'm not certain because I haven't done thousands, so I don't know what the average looks like. And that's another thing. If you want to gamble a little bit, right, you could get very lucky and have a really awesome session. That's why my numbers range from 2 to 2.5 on Silverleaf and Peace Bloom, and why it ranges from 2.4 to 2.8 on Earthroot. That's because I've had some sessions that have been much better than others. But it's also a little unreliable because I don't have the same amount of herbs every time. So it's something to keep in mind. But I do pay attention to those markets, and whenever I see that it's worth it, right? If the herbs are a little bit low whenever I'm looking at the auction house and I want to post my stuff, I'm like, okay, well, I'll just make it into alabaster pigment and post it up. That's how I've been doing it. We haven't been doing it too much because it hasn't been worth it. The vast majority of the time, it's been more worth it just to sell the herbs straight up. Also, it seems much easier to just sell the herbs, which is, you know, for obvious reason, that makes sense that they would sell faster than one pigment. But again, something that's really nice. Another thing is copper ore. Now, I did talk about this in some of the previous episodes, but we'll go over it again because I have crafted some handfuls of copper bolts. The way that it goes together is that we have the copper ore, which we then have to make into copper bars, and then we can make that into a handful of copper bolts. So it's a lot of crafting time, which in a normal case, if you actually have time to play and have time to be active, that's not worth it, right? Especially a lot of the time because handfuls of copper bolts are really close to the value of what copper bars are. And you kind of have to try and make a decision on whether or not that's worth your time. Usually for me, if the value of the handful of copper bolts are about 1 gold higher than the copper bars themselves, well, then I'll find it worth it and post it up in the auction house and sell it. But I don't do it with all of it. They do sell a lot faster than something like alabaster pigments, so that's fine. Another thing is we can also make the rough stones into the blasting powder, which does give them a little bit more value. But again, we're talking silver here. So I usually only find both the alabaster pigments and also the handful of copper bolts and potentially rough blasting powder. I really only find those worth it if I need to AFK for a little bit, or I need to, you know, take a quick break or something, because then my character is doing something while I'm not there, right? Which is a very, very good thing to you know, take into consideration if you're trying to make gold in other expansions. So that's why I also wanted to mention it one more time and talk to you guys about it, because it gives a lot of, like, it makes a lot of sense in general for gold making. So hopefully that gives you guys an idea of how that's put together. But I will say for this challenge, especially in Durotar, most of the time I will just be selling the materials straight up, because if I have a lot of time to play, I'd rather just sell the materials whenever the price is looking good, and especially because they sell pretty fast. And I don't want to be standing around in the city too long if I don't need to AFK at that very point. So I'm okay with taking a small loss. You also have to consider spending time on crafting is lowering the amount of time that you can be out farming in the world. Say that you farmed for 3 hours, and then it takes you another, say, hour almost to actually just craft alabaster pigments and craft the copper bars, and then a handful of copper bolts. And then if you do anything else along those lines, well, then that's a lot of crafting time where you're just standing around in the city where you're not really getting anything done. And as I said, it's really only worth it if I have to AFK. Otherwise, it's much faster. Run to the city, well, fly to the city, post it up in the auction house, and get straight back out here. And we don't want to have a lot of these items laying in our inventory too long. So, you know, usually around the hour mark, I actually tend to go back to the city and post up my stuff, just so we can get things moving and have things sell. Sometimes it does take a little longer though, but it's up to you and how you want to do that. But I hope that makes sense. If there's anything else that you guys would like me to go over, if there's anything that I missed or anything that doesn't make sense, make sure you leave those comments down in below the video, right, as questions. And I'd love to yap about it, love to talk about it. And yeah, let's continue along in the episode. Another farm that I wanted to spend some time on before we go over and show the mailbox is this farm right here. It's outside Orgrimmar, and we can kill these Furious Earth Guards and also these Teeming Water Guard. Now, I did check on Wowhead their loot table, and here's the thing. They have the possibility to drop Essence of Water. Now, I did not know that these could drop Essence of Water, and since I just got one, I have no idea how many you can get an hour, and I don't know what the actual potential gold power can be from this farm. So I want to test this out. We also have the opportunity of actually mining these guys. I don't think that's worth it, but it might be, because they don't seem to fully be hyper spawning. But we do have this entire area, and we can farm all of these guys and fly back and forth. Not only do they have the possibility to drop Essence of Water, but they also have the possibility to drop Elemental Water and Elemental Earth. Now, these don't have crazy value. The Elemental Earth has, you know, about a 1 gold value, and then around a 30 silver value in the Elemental Water. But the Essence of Water is 115 gold. So right now, if we can get 30 of these in 1 hour, this is already better, much better than any other type of farm that we can do for consistent gold. Essence of Water is really, really, really easy to sell, and it has a value of 115 gold. So I'm going to put an hour of work into this, and I'll show you guys a little bit about what we get. I do also want to mention that the trash that we're getting is also pretty valuable. As you can see, only been farming for a little bit of time here, and these is something, or well, they are something that you can get quite a lot of value for. See, we only have about 19 of these. Oh, we actually have 2 different stacks, I can see, and they don't stack very high, but you can see that we have 7 gold in value just here. That's pretty good, pretty quickly. And we also have these shimmering shards, so we're gonna have to pass over by the vendors real quick. And we also get Essence of Earth. Unfortunately, they're not worth very much either, but we will take those. And then before I got interrupted by my own brain, we also have the opportunity to get a lot of the white quality mog that you can get from here. And that goes for the primal set, it goes for the charger set, it goes for the war torn set, as you can see right here, and it also goes for the tribal set, and I think that's it. There's also the ancestral set. That is something that we can also get. I actually think we got one of them. Yeah, we did right here, the ancestral set. That's another one. They're white quality mogs that collectors want, and it's not something that a lot of people farm, so it's something that we can build up the auction house again with, And yeah, I'm gonna stop yapping now, and I'll continue with this for about an hour, and then we'll see whether or not it's gonna be worth our time to continue doing this in the future. We have completed a full hour of this farming location. Now, we got 14 Essence of Water, and I really feel like this could change a lot depending on how lucky we get, just because the drop rate is 0.12. So, actually, was it 0.012? I gotta check that real quick. It's 0.12. So, not the highest drop rate, but I will also say that most of these we actually got in the first half hour, and the other half hour we almost got nothing. So, whether or not we got lucky, you know, remains to be seen. But getting 14 regardless in an hour, I'll take it. It's 1600 gold. These are really, really awesome and easy to sell. We obviously as well got some elemental water, elemental earth, essence of earth, core of earth, and also club of water. These will be really easy to sell. Maybe not the essence of earth, but they don't have much value regardless. But that's probably another 100 gold in materials. If we also count the herbs and the ore that we pick up around here whenever we're waiting a little bit for some of these mobs to respawn, we probably have another, I want to say, maybe 100 gold in value. So that puts us at, I want to say, close to 2,000 gold an hour for an hour's work in terms of just pure materials. Pretty awesome, pretty good if you compare it to the other opportunities we have. Now here's the thing. We could obviously get really lucky in certain hours and get a lot of these, or maybe even get less. But the big bonus of this particular farm is you can see all of these materials that we're getting as well as trash. Now we have 620 of these, so that's a lot of stacks. 620 divided by that is 31 stacks, so it's 31 times what? How much? 4 gold, 14 silver. So that's another 128 gold, so we'll put that on top of the material value. We also have the shimmering shards, and that is 8 stacks, 8 times 8.36. Do that. Was it 36? 64. That's another 70 gold. So it's another 200 gold, so we'll put ourselves at approximately 2200, which is pretty nice. I will absolutely take that. And that is like the main trash that we get. We also get a couple of other things, but they don't have much value, and we didn't get too many of them, so we don't count those. Now, another thing is that we get a couple of, you know, gray items here. Nothing of particularly insane value. However, we did get some of the pieces that I mentioned have some decent value because of the rarity and where to get them. And one is the Charger's Hand Wraps, which we already have one of on the auction house. We also got the War-Torn Bands. We already have one of. We have been able to sell the Charger's Hand Wraps before for about 1,000 gold, so I'm pretty happy with that. This one, not yet. And then we also got 2 Ancestral pieces, which we don't have these on the auction house, which is really awesome. And the way that I would look at the prices of these things is I would look at the region sale average and kind of price it alongside that, because we're not here in Durotar for a long time. Well, I mean, we have been here for a long time, but we're trying to get out as fast as possible. So I'm not trying to potentially wait, I don't know how long, or get super lucky and sell this for thousands and thousands of gold. I would much rather be able to farm a bunch of these and then sell them for lower prices. So if we can sell these for this one for 852, this one for 632, this one for 1,235, and this one for 1,234. I mean, that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I would be super happy if we had the opportunity to sell them for that, which we have been able to for some of these more classic looking things, some of these specific lower drop rate items here in Durotar. Now, overall, I really actually enjoy this farm because it's open world, and I want to say, depending on the luck, obviously the next hour we do could get luckier, could get a little less lucky, but being between 2,000 gold and maybe potentially 3,000 gold in material value, and then also getting these, what do you call them, items on top, and all I'm doing is I'm running up and down this beach here and killing mobs. It is a lot easier to do this and then watch something on the side than flying around and gathering. And it's also really nice to have this as an opportunity to be able to farm. But anyway, really good farm. If you guys are doing this challenge yourself, you should absolutely make it out here. It's pretty cool. As always, I want to go over my slash played, and then we take a look at what we have sold in the mailbox, so far at least. We are at 4 days and 22 hours. So if you watched the last episode, you can see that we've put in quite a lot of hours. I actually think it's about approximately those 21, 22 hours, something like that. It's a lot of hours regardless, but that is where we're currently at. And our gold is 152,908. So it has risen a little bit because of the raw gold. We are actually selling some more of the stuff that we farmed recently. This is right after the previous clip. So again, I want to show you guys what we have in the mailbox. We have 54 gold. There is quite a lot of stuff in here. The vast majority of it is materials, and you can see kind of like where we swapped over from doing Ragefire Chasm permanently over to doing a lot of gathering. Now, the farm that you just saw, I plan on doing that a lot, so you'll probably also notice that a change in the mailbox once we actually get to the next episode. But as you can see, the usual big sellers, it's greater eternal essences. We also have some greater magic essences here. It's all from Disenchanting. And then we have some copper bars. We have some handful of copper bolts as well. We have some herbs, nothing outside the ordinary. We did sell one of the tribal bracers here for 950 gold. Really awesome sale there. And then we also sold a veteran girdle for 343 gold. This is a random gray item that doesn't particularly look good, so I'm pretty happy about that one. And this one obviously is very nice. And then we have more materials, nothing out of the ordinary, a couple of crafted blacksmithing transmog pieces here, so we take that. And then we have more materials, both crafted and non-crafted. The alabaster pigments are actually down to about 6 gold now, so I'm gonna start not crafting them again because it's gonna be way more worth it just to sell the materials straight up. But it moves around all the time. It's really unfortunate though if I craft a bunch of alabaster pigments and then the price falls. So most of the time I want to avoid this, so I'm probably going to be staying away from alabaster pigments for the next foreseeable future because we don't really make anything or we lose gold on it. And then there's the handful of copper bolts. I usually only ever make these if I have some AFK time that I need to take care of, because then we make a little bit of gold just standing around, and then we have more herbs. So as you can see, nothing besides, you know, a pair, maybe 3-4 different items that we actually sold for transmog. Besides that, it's been just pure materials. As for the gold per hour, if we count this, it's obviously not fully counted because we have some stuff in the auction house that still has not sold. But if we take those 22, 21 hours, we'll just be nice and call it 22, just in case. Approximately 41,554 gold divided by 22 is 1,888 gold per hour. So if we don't count the stuff that we currently have posted on the auction house, about 1,900 gold per hour for our work. It's not bad. It's not, you know, out of this world. I'm actually pretty happy with it because, you know, there is AFK time counted into this as well. So it's probably somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 gold. But again, really, really awesome, really, really big progress here for this episode. Overall, we get to 194,462. One thing that I want to show you guys is another farm that we have been spending some time on. Now, as you know, in the latest episode, if you watched that one, you totally should, by the way. If you haven't, you should go watch it. We farmed up here right outside Ogrimmar, and that was some earth elementals and some water elementals. Now, another spot that we have, which I knew about, but I didn't really consider it because I didn't know that we could actually get essence of water here. I wanted to test out this particular area as well. Now, this entire beach has all of these water elementals. So, as you can tell, if you know the other farm, this is a lot more mobs. I don't necessarily want to say more dense, but some of the areas on the beach are definitely more dense. And additionally, I also want to say that I have done both of these areas now for a considerable amount of hours, which you will be able to see in the mailbox later in the video. And this particular area here has, I want to say, a little bit of a higher drop rate. It might not be the drop rate, it might also just be the amount of kills that we can actually get here compared to the other farming location. But the last 3 hours that I did, I got 34 Essence of Water and 37 Essence of Water and then 35 Essence of Water. This is, I want to say, probably what we will be spending our time on, because if we can consistently keep those numbers, especially at this farm here, this is the best gathering farm that we can do. It outperforms mining and gathering by about, I want to say, 1,000 gold even, especially even more so because when we actually do farm this particular location, we also have the chance to get a lot of the really decent white quality sets, the Grizzly, the Primal, the Tribal, the Battle Chain, like all of that stuff that's nostalgic related and also lower drop rates, it can actually drop from here. And that is also something that you will see in my mailbox, because I've actually been able to sell a decent amount of some of those for pretty low prices, but still we're taking the quick sales. And that makes this farm better than mining and herbalism. Ragefire Chasm is still good, but because we have so many duplicates of all of the transmog from there, the actual material farm itself is not good enough. So I will most likely be doing this all the way to the end of, well, being able to earn a total token. So I hope this makes sense to you guys, and I'll move straight into showing you guys an hour of farming right now. We have finished up a total 1 full hour of this particular farming location, and as you can see in my inventory, we have some rewards. We have 33 Essence of Water, we have 57 Globe of Water, and then we also have 75 Elemental Water. Now those two are not worth that much, but as you guys know, the Essence of Water is worth approximately somewhere between like 95 to 110 gold. Now, besides that, we got a couple of these grays, but not anything of insane value besides this one. We got an Ancestral Belt, which we already have one of, which is a little unfortunate. But besides that, we didn't really see any others. Oh, actually, never mind. We saw the Ancestral Bracers. These we do not currently have posted on the auction house. I have sold these before, but again, we got 2 of the decent white quality items. These are actually both of the ancestral type, well, set. The other one's not so much, and we also have duplicates of, yeah, pretty much every single one of them. But as you can see, 1 total hour, we got 2 items here that we're probably going to be able to sell for somewhere between 500 gold and 1,000 gold. And that's going to be pretty nice on top of the Essence of Water that we can get some gold for. And then as well as the Globe of Water and also the Elemental Water. Pretty nice, pretty good farm. This is the location that we've been spending some time on, and as you saw, it's pretty consistent around this number. And yeah, this proves to be about if you include all the trash as well that we're going to be able to sell here, and then some of the values from the whites and the grays, probably somewhere between 3,500 to 4,000 gold an hour. Really, really strong number, especially because the bottom line of it is covered by the materials. But let's move on to the next thing. Well, well, well. We have made it to the segment of the episode where we go over our slash played, and I also show you guys the mailbox. So, our current slash played is 5 days, 18 hours, and 11 minutes. And I can say right now that the amount of gold that we are going to be looking at is quite a lot. As you can see, we have 49,169 nice gold in the mailbox. And the biggest portion of this is, without a doubt, as you can see, Essence of Water. Okay? We have done quite a lot of hours. I'm not actually exactly sure how many hours this is, but putting this together is like 3, 4... 5, 6, 7. It's around 10. Probably somewhere between 8 or 10. And we just did a couple more, as I showed you guys earlier in the episode. So that hasn't sold yet, but we have done quite a lot of hours of Essence of Water farming. Now, another thing that we are getting from those farms are some of the really good white items. And I actually want to show that because besides some of these are actually materials that we did farm before, well, the release before we finished the last episode. So some of this is left over from previous farms, and this is why this shows up here. Because it had not sold when we were recording the last one, but a lot of it, if not most of it, has sold now, and you know, it's the usual suspects. But as you can see, this is actually one thing. That's the Primal Cape. That's one we've been talking about, selling for 950. Obviously 1,000 gold if you consider the auction house cut. Really, really nice to see this one. That's a big sale. It saves us a lot of time. Then we also have the Charger's Bindings here, which is another one of the white quality mogs that we've been able to sell for 1,000 gold minus the auction house cut. Really, really nice to see that one. And then there are also a lot of these smaller regular grays and greens that we've been able to sell. Pretty nice. Maybe it's one collector, maybe it's a couple of collectors, but you can see we have some more here. And then you see Charger's Boots. Again, another one of the more, well, how do you say it? One of those sets of white quality items. Again, selling this one for 760. Also not anything that we can complain about. Really awesome to see. Then we also have the Ancestral Brazers here, which is another one of the white quality items, which is another one that we actually just restocked in that hour of farming that we did for the purposes of this episode. And as you can see, we sold it for 1,000 gold minus the auction house cut. Really awesome to see. We also sold 3 different pieces here. The Warped Leather Boots and the Loose Chain Bracers are both gray items. We sold them for 285 and 282. Pretty nice to see. And then the Ceremonial Cloak, again, that is one of the sets for the white quality items, selling it for 475 gold. Really, really awesome to see. And that's about it, right? But still, we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what? Where was the other one? 6 right there, and then 7, right? So we're talking 7 pretty big boy items in terms of it being just grays and whites. Pretty awesome to see that we've been able to sell that, especially now that we've been farming a little bit more in the open world. And it does seem possible to quick sell them, air quote quick sell them, which is really nice. But as you can tell, that's a big portion of it. And then, of course, Essence of Water being 25k of it. But still, awesome. We obviously have also sold some other smaller things, as you can tell here in the mailbox. We unfortunately can't sort it so you can see anything super cool. But we actually haven't farmed since we started farming the Essence of Water. I haven't been inside Ragefire Chasm, and I also have not been doing any mining and herbalism, like big portions of it. Obviously, we get a little bit while we're doing our regular farms. If we do one of the elemental farms, we pass by some of it, and you can also tell because there's a couple of pieces like this one right here. This was a big portion that we were trying to sell, but besides that, it's maybe a couple small pieces will show up here and there. You can see the 4 copper ore here it's not going to be a lot because we're mostly focused on Essence of Water. And I most certainly believe that Essence of Water is going to be the one to take us all the way to our goal of a token. Now, right now, the token is at 349k. So with looting this, we'll see what the total gold is at. But we're going to be at about 250k. Okay? In my head, in my brain, what I currently want to do is I want the next episode to be the last one. I don't know if you can tell, but the last episode, I'm pretty sure we were at 5 days and 22 hours. As you can tell right now, we are at 7 days, 13 hours, and 46 minutes. So I have spent an ungodly amount of time since the last episode. And we have finally done it. We have 99 mails, and I actually looted a couple just because I wanted to show all of like the big boy gold in one whole page for 100 mails. And as you can see, we have 112,767 gold, which is going to bring us to 360k. Which means we finally have the token. We have done it. We have reached a goal, and much of what we have done recently, and you can probably tell from the mailbox here, I'll go over a couple of it. A lot of it is Essence of Water. As you could maybe hear if you watched the last episode, that farm changed something in my mind, and I decided that I was going to spend the rest of this challenge, at least in Durotar, on Essence of Water, because the gold per hour on that farm and how easy it was to do while also watching something else was amazing. So therefore, that's what I wanted to do, and you can see that 90,000 of that gold comes straight from Essence of Water. And you can also see the portions that we've been able to sell this in has been quite small, actually. And some are a little bit bigger, and we actually had a couple issues here the last, well, day and a half because of the simple fact that the price was getting dumped a little bit and then people weren't really buying it. But we did actually end up finally selling the last couple of pieces here. We have, I think I have a couple left over in the auction house, but I'm not too sure about that. Either way, you can also see that we have a bunch of white and gray pieces of transmog sales here. It's really low prices. You can see a couple hundred gold, maybe 50 to 100 gold. Nothing crazy. But I decided that I wanted to, well, get rid of a lot of stock on the auction house because we're leaving the zone anyway. You can see I dumped a whole bunch of stuff here because one thing that I have decided to do, and I'll just go ahead and loot this, and then we can buy the token so it doesn't run away from us. One thing that I have decided to do for this challenge, because now that we're done with Durotar, we are going to be moving into a new zone. One thing that I've decided to do is all of the stuff that we currently have in the auction house, I will be getting rid of it, okay? We have finally bought the token. There it is. It's wonderful. We did it. All of this stuff on the auction house, unless it sells on this last post, I will be getting rid of it. When we move into the new zone, I don't want to have all this stuff that we have here mixed up with all of the new stuff that we have farmed. I want it to be very easy for me to understand, also for you guys to understand what we actually have in the new zone, and that also makes it a little bit fair so we don't make any potential extra gold for something we have laying around. Now, we do have a little bit of gold laying here. We have 2,553 gold. I'm actually going to send, 2,500 of this to my main. I'm going to do that so we start out at pretty much no gold. I'm going to leave a couple of gold for myself so I can post stuff on the auction house on our first posting session when we move into the new zone. But for the people that are interested, I wanted to go over a little bit of what we have done for gold. Now, we did actually get a decent amount of raw gold from farming Ragefire Chasm and obviously our open world farms, but I wanted to go over what we actually got in terms of the sales for, you know, well, some of the better sales anyway, because going through every single one, as you can see, we have 55,240 different items sold, and you can tell that, you know, we have 334,000, which is a little bit away from the gold. That's because the rest of it is raw gold, which this can't really find. It doesn't track that, which is a little sad, but it is what it is. But again, here we are. We're looking at, you can actually see that we were able to sell some of these white items for a considerable amount of gold. You can see a lot of this stuff for 1,000 gold sold, and then we also had one green here for 2k. And it's actually kind of crazy to me that we didn't have more of these items sell for higher prices, but it just didn't happen. It is because it's Durotar. I mean, there's really nothing else to it, and we can't get around that in any way. But still, being able to sell these for a couple of these for multiple thousands or just 1,000 gold, absolutely amazing. Then we also sold gateway control shards. We actually ended up selling 29 of these for an average of 341 gold, which is about a 200 gold profit per. So we made about 6k on that, which is awesome for a vendor item. And then, as you can tell, we sold some more of these white items for, in the 500 to 700 range. Really awesome. Then we have some more around the 500 range. And then we get into greens, and then you can see a bunch of the gateway control shards here. And then we actually have the essence of water. And I also think when we get down into this, we're getting down into the material range. And as you can see, there's a lot of different materials here. We went all over the place. We sold copper bars, we sold copper ore, greater eternal essences, rich illusion dust, linen cloth, all of the herbs. We went for engineering, handful of copper bolts. We did some alabaster pigments as well from milling. Did a bunch of disenchanting, as you can see. We were all over the place. We actually also went into a couple of the other crafting professions, to see if we could get anything that was worth anything. But not really. I mean, there was a couple crafted transmog pieces in places like tailoring and blacksmithing. We actually did use tailoring to our advantage for disenchanting, which was nice, but still, I mean, we used an ungodly amount of time on this stuff. And the next zone that we get into, hopefully it's a little better than Durotar. I have big hopes because of the zone that we're moving into. But again, it goes to show what you guys can see that we actually spend our time on. It's a ridiculous thing to actually take a look at, and I can't quite believe it when I look at it. But if we look at it, we have 7 days, 13 hours, and 52 minutes. So in total, if we take that together, that's 24 times 7, 168, and then we'd say, well, we're just going to say 14 hours. So we spent a total of 182 hours on making a token from Durotar. It is about a 2k gold per hour that we earned in total, which I'm honestly pretty happy about. Considering it's Durotar, which is a starting zone that doesn't have too many things to offer, 2,000 gold an hour is not that outrageous, because we also had some AFK time, obviously, and whenever we were posting on the auction house, that slows things down as well. But I think overall we did really, really good. And again, I appreciate you guys so much for watching this video. I mean, this whole series has done amazingly. I'm very happy about the fact that you guys are enjoying it as much as I am. And this is, of course, only the beginning. My plan is to make it into a bunch of other zones. Now let's talk about the next zone. And I have decided that it's going to be the Barrens, okay? I've decided that it's going to be the Barrens because when we start in Durotar, the only other zones that lay up to it, you would have to pass through Orgrimmar. Now we did open up Orgrimmar for the purposes of the auction house, and we also did it for the purposes of Ragefire Chasm. But I think, both for nostalgic reasons, but also because of the fact that if you move into another zone from Durotar itself, if you don't count Orgrimmar, the only one that you can get to, unless you cross like crazy waters or a big old mountain, is Barrens. So because of that, I'm gonna pick Barrens. And there's also the other reason, and that's because if we move into the Barrens, we have so many different ways that we can go. We have every possible option. We can go south, we can go west, we can go north, we can even go northeast a little bit. So I think it's a good place to start, and Barrens also has a lot of different things to offer, so I think it'll be a great time for myself, and hopefully also for you guys, to follow along in the challenge of earning a token in the Barrens. But this is a big old yapping session. We finally did it. And thank you guys so much for watching. this first part of this series. I call it season 1 because the Barrens will be its own thing. We're gonna start back from episode 1 for the Barrens, and then as we go on and continue into a new zone after the Barrens, well, then that'll be season 3. So the Barrens will be season 2. I hope you guys are gonna come along for the journey as you watch a couple of sales trickle in here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.